just would laugh at that. That's weird French. That's not France.
Okay, I think we're streaming now. Is anyone able to... Oh, yeah, we are. Can one of you guys just hop onto the stream and check the audio levels are okay, please? The last couple of times they've been a bit
Sounds great, man.
temperamental. Oh, it's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you checking the audio on YouTube or on Discord?
I was checking it on YouTube.
The YouTube audio sounds great. If everyone could head there and drop a like,
Okay,
maybe
awesome.
a comment, that'd be good.
Right. So, hello, welcome to Convince Me Otherwise.
It sounds pretty good.
Thanks. That wasn't a tester, but I mean, you just fucked up my intro, but we can work around that. That's fine. Right.
Let's do it again.
So today I'm putting forward the opinion that Black Lives Matter is a racist organisation. Anyone who disagrees with me, please feel free to hop onto the Discord and you can give us your best shot attempting to convince me otherwise. Anyone who does agree with me, you're also welcome to stand on the firing line with me. So let's just go around the room and see what the views are of who we've got already here. So we'll start with John Boy. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree with my statements?
I'll be that guy. I believe there are most likely provable evidence-based racist elements within BLM, but I don't believe that the all aspects of the movement are necessarily racist. That'll be my position.
Okay, so is that a yes or a no?
I can't give you a yes or no to that question, but I can give you yes at times and no at other times.
Okay, right. Sounds like you haven't quite made your mind up yet.
I reserve the right to evaluate individual circumstances, and I'll give you an example. So, for example, if I go to the Black Lives Matter page right now and I look at the About Us section of the Black Lives Matter page, there doesn't seem to be necessarily anything indicated in their statements that would suggest that they are racist. But I will obviously say that we need to define that term before we
we'll go over the definitions. Actually, by my own definition, I'd say the very name of the organisation is racist. But we'll move on. Bruce, what do you think?
Yes, racist.
Okay, simple
I
enough.
agree with you. Yeah, I would say, even if there's circumstances in which they are not racist, if that were on the other foot, they, as a white person, as they would be throwing daggers in my direction, they would call me racist despite my other non-racist actions. So, by default, they are racist.
And Doolittle, what's your opinion on this?
I'm also in the racist camp.
Okay,
and
just
not
to
racist,
clarify, you think Black Lives Matter?
But they're also anti-capitalist, so they're anti-American society racists, black supremacists. Yeah.
And Travis, not sure if you're AFK or not either. No, looks like we don't have Travis. Okay, right. Okay, I guess we should start with definitions then. John Boy, what definition are you using which allows you to justify Black Lives Matter as a legitimate organisation that isn't racist?
Well, I don't know if I want to call them a legitimate organization as a characteristic, but let's just say the definition of racist that I'm using to evaluate the claims that they're making, and I'll reference the About Us page for the purpose of this part of the conversation, is that one race is essentially superior to others as a function of their racial or ethnic origin. From what I currently see on their website, I don't see anything that supports that claim.
Ooh, okay, interesting. Yeah, that wouldn't be the definition I would go by, but even by that definition, I do think there is definitely evidence that they don't see the races as equal. meaning they do believe in superiority. Tell me what you think to my definition. I would have two definitions depending if you're using the word as a noun or an adjective. As an adjective, meaning to add a description to a thing. So to say something you did was racist. The adjective version of the word would mean a discrimination based on race. And then as a noun, meaning you're calling a person a racist, it would be referring to someone who has a fear, hatred, or prejudice on the basis of race. What do you think to those definitions?
For the second point that you made, I'm comfortable with that definition of racism. The idea of discrimination, I think, deserves further elaboration, as colloquially it probably has a certain connotation of being negative, but by definition, I'm not sure that's necessarily the case. So I would want to understand what you mean by discrimination.
So the reason why I say discrimination and I don't discriminate between positive and negative discrimination there is because I don't think it matters for one thing, but also if you are positively discriminating in favour of one race, then you must also be negatively discriminating against all others. So they kind of go hand in hand anyway. What would you say to that?
I would agree with that. In fact, I think of the more valid accusations of racism that you could ascribe to BLM, it would probably be along exclusionary lines. I also say this somewhat tentatively, as obviously people that participate in BLM activities are not exclusively black, but there certainly seems to be exclusionary rhetoric around what the cause entails, and that seems to exclude particularly white people.
Right, okay. I have a question for you, John Boy. Do you think that if an organisation was to arise and they called themselves White Lives Matter, would you find that to be a racist name?
No, in name only, no.
Oh, okay, interesting. Well, it's good to see you have intellectual consistency. Most people in
keep
your
this conversation
position
going. You might find some inconsistencies, but
that really has surprised me. I don't know really where to go with that.
Yeah, I guess I try to be somewhat literal when I can, right? So this is why I personally don't take much umbrage with statements like Black Lives Matter on their own, or Blue Lives Matter, or White Lives Matter. Those all seem to be very reasonable statements to me. Now, what they imply, is obviously a broader part of the conversation. But I also, I don't take, when someone says Blue Lives Matter, and again, I'm not a black person, but when someone says Blue Lives Matter, I don't take that to mean necessarily that Black lives don't matter. Or All Lives Matter, I don't take that to mean that Black lives don't matter. But obviously they carry weight beyond the literal interpretation.
Sir Grimm, what's your position on this? Do you think Black Lives Matter is a racist or neutral organisation?
It depends. I think that they were a progressive, somewhat racist, and possibly terrorist group based off their agenda that they had going into it, and then they seem to have adjusted to a more of a social equity group, which if you want to advocate for social equity, sure, but the fact is I think they have so many mixed messages now. I really don't know where they stand, whether it be from this group to that group to this group, all the way up to leaders in Chicago meeting with Biden to figure that out and having no more better results, right, to the actual issues in the street, rather than just more money being flowed and more people talking about it, and the solutions aren't being actually implemented correctly. When I look at things like that and I go, does anybody recognize that police unions actually might be an issue here too? But nobody wants to talk about that, and we're just all talking about brutal cops and black lives being treated, when it's really just a kind of more of a location issue, and I would say quality of our law enforcement issue.
So is that a yes or a no?
So it's not a yes or no. It's not.
They
a
tried
yes
to
or
do that
no.
to me too, man.
It's not a
Stay
yes or no
strong.
question. Do you think the moon is far away? And it's like sometimes it's really far away, and sometimes it's really close, right? Like
Okay, yeah. Well,
changes all the time, and
so
your opinion is
when it comes to far away, I don't have a strict definition
Yes.
for that.
It's
That's
not Jupiter
subjective.
far away. I'll tell you that much.
However, I do have an objective definition for racist. I don't know if were you listening to the show when I went over those definitions?
Oh, I just joined, and you randomly just asked me that question, and I'm like, they're all over the board.
Okay, let me know what you think to my definition. So, as an adjective, racist means discrimination on the basis of race. And as a noun, racist means referring to a person with a fear, hatred, or prejudice on the basis of race. What do you think to those?
I think we all do that. Then what you just described is everybody is racist. Because not only are we doing those things subconsciously, it depends on the actions that follow beyond those definitions. And it's okay for you to be in a neighborhood and correctly take in accountability probably their skin color, right? The way they walk, the way they talk, right? You can take into these things no problem. It depends on the conclusion and how you act after, because you're going to do it anyway. If you don't think that you don't judge people within about 5 minutes, actually, I'm sorry, within 5 seconds, right? The subconscious judges people, and it's a survival thing, 100%, right? Is it secure? Is it safe? Fight or flight? Can I be here or not be here? And interlock. And I think we do this with skin color, and we do this with stereotypes all the time.
What you're
Depends on the
describing,
action.
I don't believe that comes under my definition, but perhaps you could.
You have to. You
Which
have
part of
to.
my definition is describing what you just said?
Why? I mean, if someone came up to you and clearly was Islamic faith, okay, like full on, like they have the clothes for it, they're talking about it, all that, right? And they come up to you and they go, actually, I was born and raised in Hawaii. My parents are Japanese. Oh, sorry, and I practice Buddhism from time to time. I mean, you would start adding these things up and being like, this doesn't fucking make any sense. Like, there's a hijab here. I got so many questions, and then you'd ask them about it, and they're like, oh, don't worry about that, and then they just keep going. You would look at the credibility of what this person is saying and go, this isn't lining up. This isn't lining up. But you're stereotyping. The whole time you're stereotyping, right? And now when this person actually asks of something of some sort of credible nature, I don't think that you're going to be like, yeah, I kind of feel like you're kind of lying or bullshitting me because what you're showing me is the opposite of what you're saying. And we need to factor both of those things in. And what a lot of people say is, I don't believe in stereotypes, is so you're not going to look at the physical world around you and take in those as data points. You're just going to neutral out a homeless person staring at you because they look homeless, and you're not going to think that they're an eccentric billionaire. Because that's stereotype.
I'm not really picking.
I think when you're talking about whether somebody's racist, everybody has some level, but not everybody has the same level of in-group preference, and that in-group might not be defined by one's racial group that they come from, right? So I think we all agree that. But what's racist in action is whether or not, when push comes to shove, whether, for example, if your executive functions of your brain can get past that and actually make a decision based on the qualities of an individual rather than the stereotype that you use as a heuristic automatically when you first encounter someone. Black Lives Matter, on the other hand, isn't making any attempt to use their executive functions to override their natural heuristics. They're in fact making it an explicit policy to side with black people in all cases regardless of whether the black person is, like, let's just say, for example, the Black Lives Matter statement on the ongoing trial of Jesse Smollett, which they have on their website. We approach situations of injustice with love and align ourselves with our community because we got us. So let's be clear, we love everybody in our community. And I could go on
That
with
statement
the statement
means nothing.
But
Yeah,
what the
statement
statement means is that
It means nothing.
they explicitly align themselves with the black in group with which
No,
they
I get it.
identify.
But it's a
No, they didn't
stupid
say that at all.
No,
statement.
it's
It means nothing.
community.
explicitly
community means
racist. It's
nothing.
explicitly racist.
Commu-
They're, even though
community could be
Jesse
multitude of
Smollett
things.
obviously faked
stupid
his own beating and is on trial with lots of evidence against him. Black Lives Matter is taking the side of him just because he's black, and they're calling everyone
No, I get it.
white supremacist. So that's what a racist is. They're taking the side
Right.
of Jesse Smollett just
Despite the
because he's
evidence.
black. They're willing to completely dismiss the justice system as long as one of the people that's on their side is the one that happens to be found guilty at the time.
Yeah, it's definitely convenience. But the statement itself is so empty. It really means nothing. That
Well,
statement you read.
The statement literally just expresses solidarity with the black community. So
Yeah,
okay, so
there is no
Jesse
black
Smollett-
community. That's such a
Jesse
stupid term.
Smollett-
That
Jesse
just means
Smollett
people with
is
dark
dead.
skin. It's stupid.
He's on trial, and Black Lives Matter is basically just saying we're going to stand with him regardless of the merits of the case because he's black. And then they go on to call the system a white supremacist system. So it's like when you make it your policy statement that it's us against the white supremacist system, regardless of what the truth is. That's explicitly racist. I think. I don't think you can argue reasonably that they're not explicitly racist.
I don't think they're explicitly racist with a statement like that. If you want to support your community, that's fine. Your community could be a hodgepodge of this, and that's exactly why they worded it.
I mean,
that way.
it's explicit prejudice. They're saying we're going to judge Jesse Smollett by his race.
Yeah, it
He's
is
black,
true.
He's with us, and we're going to support him just because he's black. It's explicit prejudice.
Well, that's a good point. I think there's definitely more than evidence that meets the eye there. I mean, it's his identity that's holding them together, not his innocence or even his victim nature. It's the identity they're talking about.
I mean,
Would
if that's
they-
how they want to do it, and they want, if that's how they blatantly want to say it, and can come out and say, you know, we're gonna judge this guy differently because of his skin color, even if it's in his benefit, that is racist by definition.
I mean,
It's prejudice. Yeah, it's prejudice by definition.
it's definitely prejudice at the least. But I would say like that if you were to take the same criteria and apply it to yourself in a conversation with them, you would be racist. Despite all, you could be married to a black woman with black children and donate to the NAACP half your salary a year and fight with black people. If you have one sniff of prejudice, you are racist in their world. And so I'm done with playing whatever this game is that people play around nuanced racism. And you can be racist and I cannot be. Rules for thee and not for me kind of thing. I think that's over. This nuance is no longer there.
Bruce,
It's
I think you would actually agree that prejudice on the basis of race is racist, though, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. That's just the basic definition of racism.
It's very basic. Yeah.
That's. I don't know if you were here earlier. That was the definition I gave. I think
Right.
that's
So if there's a trial, right, and as a policy, your judgment is that the person that's of the preferred race is innocent and should be loved, rather than judging the outcome of the trial based on the facts of the matter. That's just explicit racism.
yeah.
It's like saying
Oh, I agree.
it's just like if I said, well, those guys are white, so they're innocent in my eyes. whether they whether
Yeah.
And
you
it
know,
doesn't.
whether the
dude,
trial
that would
whether the trial convicts them or not, they're innocent in my
Dude,
eyes.
that would
they're
put
white.
you on like a hate watch list, and you would be
Oh, yeah.
on the
And they just, and BLM just did the same thing with Jesse Smollett, but they said that we love him because he's black,
Yeah.
despite the fact that he's on trial.
It's the same problem. It's the same problem with the presupposition of the name itself. You can only be racist if you're white. That's really what they're saying here. Black Lives Matter because white people don't think they do. That's the presuppositions are dripping in the statement alone, and then the statement that you read as well. They can't be racist because they're not white.
Well, I think they're operating on a different definition. I can speak for my own definition, but I think that they have a fundamentally different definition of what racism means.
Yeah,
If you
actually,
keep moving the goalpost, then this is going to continue, and there's going to be no headway, and people are going to continue to fight.
Yeah, I'm not saying I agree with their position. I'm just saying that it just happens to operate on a different presupposition.
Yeah, what is it that racism only comes from those who are the majority
Hey,
race?
Bruce, just 2 seconds. Bruce, your mic's a little overdriven. So if you could turn your gain down a little bit, and then we'll turn your you back
the
up.
founder of Black Lives Matter has
Oh, that's way better. Way better.
Yeah, sorry.
Oops, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, so nobody gets to make their own definitions just for their own purposes, because the KKK could redefine racism as they see it, and that just means they're allowed to burn crosses on people's lawns as long as they.
I
don't
can make
actually
my
kill
own
anybody.
definitions. That's a bunch of squabbly push.
We all need to work on the same definitions, and the racism has had a definition for a long time, which basically means prejudice based on race, and there's some nuanced approaches to it, but like this thing that they came up with in the late 90s where black people can't be racist, that's just absolute nonsense. I agree. There's a power struggle going on, and I think we can acknowledge that there's a power struggle going on, and the people, including Black Lives Matter, and they're probably not alone, are looking to flip the master-slave relationship. There's been novels written about it where essentially they're dreaming of a world where the black people are it's a black supremacist world instead of a white supremacist world. And they're not looking for equity. They're looking for being the slave masters.
Yeah, I can impose a vision on them. I'm not saying that that's not true, or at least it's not true for some percentage of that demographic. But the question is, what percentage is that truly what they represent as an organization? What is the evidence for that? Those would be the necessary questions to determine the validity.
And in any given person, I would say you have to judge them based on their own actions, right? But
yeah, totally.
But it's entirely shown. Their hands have been shown that they're not just looking for equity. They're asking for reparations that are far beyond, what any given individual should be owed. They're asking for different sets of rules where they're given not equal footing under the law, but systemic advantages.
Yeah,
so I don't know. The way I see it is that they're just trying to flip it. They're not.
Reparations were actually one of the things I remember being on their manifesto before they stripped their website clean of any indication of what they stand for. And
it's an interesting topic. Like, what do you feel about reparations?
Reparations
holistically,
on the basis of race, are racist. Because it's
do you feel like they can be justified, even if it lets
whether
us
they're
know,
justified or not doesn't matter. It's discriminating on the basis of race.
No, I agree with you there, and maybe we don't want to take it in this direction, so I won't. But my question then would be, could they be justified, even if that's true, and if so, how would they
I don't think
he's asking, could they be justified in the racism at that point?
Yeah.
I don't think they're justified, but that's a different topic, really. That's capitalism versus communism.
Yeah, well, I won't take us there now.
I think Black Lives Matter. I think the reparations agenda is entirely in the purview of Black Lives Matter.
Because what is the result? Right. What do they want to happen to? Because if
Yeah,
there
what do
is
they
no
want?
outcome, if there's no desired outcome, then the term itself and the organization has no purpose. So reparations is largely a part of their purpose. I'm sure of it.
Actually, yeah, I think the one thing I could find that is still on their websites, apart from a bunch of partisan party politics stuff, is they want to remove. Sorry, not remove. They say defund the police. They don't really elaborate on what that means, but I have heard some members of the organisation, at least in the UK, say that by that they mean they want to abolish the police. If you want to be charitable, you could say they just mean they want to pay the police less. But either way, I think most people can agree that's not a good policy.
I mean, I want to pay the police less too, but for a lot other reasons. That's a different issue. But I can understand that, but they're going at that from a different position. Right?
Yeah, their
is
position is they want
nothing.
to either take money away from the police or abolish them completely because they are racist, basically.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the way that I view that piece, it's the nuclear option, right? In a world where the police have become an oppressive and dangerous force against the lives of ordinary citizens, and let's exclude race for a moment, defunding them is a legitimate way to reduce their influence or power over citizens. Now, I think that's oversimplifying this particular issue. But if you saw no other path to stopping that severe negative outcome, what would you do, right? No, I agree with you, but I agree with you that that's not the best option,
if the presupposition is white people are racist and they'll stop at nothing to continue to be racist, if you don't have an organization like the police to check what they would consider to be racist activities, defunding them would have the opposite reaction, right?
Yeah, that wasn't really.
I understand there's more to it than that. But.
Yeah. The point was really if you were truly desperate and you felt like you had no other civil option, then theoretically as a citizen, defunding is the best way to pursue protection, right? If you felt like they were fundamentally flawed and irreconcilably flawed, then pursuing defunding is a political way to respond to that. Now, I don't agree that that's the case.
The purpose of the police is to enforce the law.
I don't think flawed is
the whole
term
defunding
because it would be the lesser of two evils, because you would say, do I want to live in a lawless land, right? Or is it okay if we reduce funding for the police?
You need to also supplement their service with something.
You guys got to realize that BLM is an anarcho-communist organization, right? They're a revolutionary anarcho-communist organization.
Started as that.
So started that, and they still are. They still advocate for defunding the police. So if you just think about it in the context of, okay, well, what do you think they want when they say defund the police, right? The police represent law and order. They represent the people giving up their individual right of self-defense, or the right to exercise violence in self-defense, to we give up that right to the police. So therefore, if you defund the police, then you have all these disarmed people, and the anarcho-communists can really do whatever they want, that's the whole point of anarchy, is that you don't have someone telling you what you can do and what you can't do. So, asking to defund the police it's entirely consistent with their platform. So, I mean, do you want to have an anarcho-communist society? And if you do, maybe Black Lives Matter is one of the organizations that you should join.
I think it's a little bit of a straw man. I think if you ask the majority of them, they just want better protection from people that they feel less threatened by. So what? And I agree with you in terms of what we should do. I don't think we should defund the police, but I think
they haven't given a suggestion of what to replace it with.
That's my biggest problem actually with it. It's all critique and no recommendation.
Is there any? Yeah, is anyone able to send Nivik a call? I'd like to get Nivik's take on this.
Wow.
Someone see if you can.
I'll send out an invite.
Thanks. So
Why token black guy? That's not.
Well, he's not even black. He's Indian, right?
Nivik is.
I think so.
I don't think anyone knows what race Nivik is for sure.
I don't know, and I don't care.
I'd bet a lot of money on it.
If any, so to the people in the room who don't believe Black Lives Matter are racist, can I ask what exactly you think they are?
So, I just posted in live text, like literally a video from Black Lives Matter. So it's blacklivesmatter.com/what defunding the police really means, and it is a video. And if you go a little bit into that video, it says, so what does defunding the police really mean?
Yikes.
Can you paraphrase it for us?
Yeah, I mean, this is like a 4-minute video, I guess, of someone talking.
It's yikes. Get rid of the...
Yeah, they're just saying they want to take the budgets of the police and put it into the people, right? Yeah, they want to.
Yeah,
like
so I mean,
100%
like from my perspective, right? They start out with just a false premise. We know that police don't keep us safe. Actually, the police keep me safe from you. I love the police. I want more police. My best friends are police. The police keep me safe from you.
You and me need to have a discussion about that another time, Doolittle, because that's not the answer.
Okay,
and so the video started that way.
It keeps me safe. The police keep me safe from people like BLM. They absolutely do. Oh, sure they do.
The police are an
and
important...
that's how the video started, which was police. Hey, know that police don't keep us safe, and then it immediately went to how many deaths are from police officers a year.
It's minimal.
So
actually,
practically zero. Yeah.
But notice how she went from factual, police don't keep us safe. We know that police don't keep us safe. Like that's how she started.
That I agree with. Different presupposition.
Right. So
false premise. I guess it depends on where you live. Maybe there's some Democrat cities where police don't keep you safe.
Or any place where you're not in a major metro area and you don't need police.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of black police officers in that area too.
There is. Look at Baltimore. I live near Baltimore, and that place is dominated by black police force, black police chief for many, many years. Not to mention the entirety of the mayor.
Baltimore did right before BLM, like literally right before BLM. They fired all their fucking police officers and did a rehiring, which was
it's all black folks.
That was an insane, like, no police station was ever doing that, right? Because, like I said, one of the biggest things that Black Lives Matter never is addressed, or you never heard on the news at all, and I don't know why, maybe the money, or maybe just because I felt like people were retarded, but only the smartest people in the room that I actually looked up to said one thing: these fucking unions are killing us.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay? They don't fire bad cops. They move them around like churches do, priests, okay? So you gotta, like, understand that because of it's a union and because we have a union-backed, like, systematic way of doing things, like, you can't make the union bad. Think about everybody that's gone against a union. Like, it just, the government gets involved and squashes the opposing person. Like,
it's the same thing with bad teachers, too.
Let me finish on this.
Sure.
Biden offered substantial EV subsidiaries, right, or subsidiaries,
electric vehicles.
For electric vehicles, right? So subsidiaries to every American through the infrastructure bill, so that when you go out and you buy an EV car, it's actually going to be marked down. It's actually be a government incentive that comes in to help pay for these things, like solar panels do. Hey, your solar panels are almost free or half off or whatever because the government's paying for it. Okay. Guess who they invited to the White House to talk about these things? The leaders in the EV market. That's right, Ford and GM, because they're union. Tesla never got an invite.
Yeah, that's a joke.
Nivik, welcome to the group.
Yeah.
What's your opinion? Do you think Black Lives Matter are racist as an organization?
Mace, you could probably turn yourself up a bit too on your side. You're a little bit quiet. Sorry.
Yeah.
Use your high voice.
See if I can figure out how to do that.
Okay. Another man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, and I think that they are American patriotic freedom fighters.
What?
Oh Jesus!
Hey, what are they fighting? What are they fighting for freedom from? Freedom from
the
what?
ideology of inequality of the American founding ideals that the nation was founding on wasn't completely inclusive. African Americans' fight for that equality is America's fight. African Americans' fight represents Americanism. They're American freedom, patriotic freedom fighters.
So
they're fighting against the ghost of the past? Is that what you're talking about?
That past is not done. The same ideology of the past, people have never moved on.
Can you give a quick
You want me to
binary?
respond? You want me to respond?
You
or
can
not?
do a breakdown in a minute, but I want a binary answer from you.
Everybody's
Are
triggered
Black
now.
Lives Matter
Okay,
racist?
I think I'm going to leave.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead and finish.
David,
You're
please,
good, man.
please stay. I want to hear your opinion. Just let
I do
Mace
too.
moderate, please.
Can you give us a quick binary answer of whether Black Lives Matter are racist or not? And then after that, you can expand on it.
Okay. You're talking about the past, and I'm saying that the past isn't separate from the present, and the ideology hasn't moved. People haven't moved on. That same ideology of inequality, it persists today, and it's a large statement in where African Americans were the first to be discriminated against in this country centuries ago, and people still can't get over it. You don't think that's a fucking priority?
Okay, I'll repeat myself with it. Can you give us an answer first and then expand on it?
You think so I don't think anybody fighting for their freedom, equality, and justice is in acts that are done to them is racist because they don't mention others.
Okay, are Black Lives Matter racist?
I just explained.
You didn't say yes or no, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Black Lives Matter is a racist race. How do you define racist?
Yeah, so as a noun, I would define racist as having a fear, hatred, or prejudice on the basis of race.
What about supremacy? Don't you think
supremacy
racist?
comes under prejudice?
If you are fighting against supremacy off of racism, that makes you racist?
No, if you hold a prejudice view on the basis of race, that makes you racist.
I don't see the fight being about supremacy with Black Lives Matter. Actually, a lot of the fights that blacks fought throughout history led to the rights of other people who are marginalized in society fight. They led the fight for inequality of marginalized groups within America. A lot of their civil rights fights branched off into inequalities at Indians, at women, at gays. So this thing about their fight being against others is not really the case. That's not how it played out. It could be painted as a case, but that's not factually true.
Okay, I'd personally say that Black Lives Matter are racist in part because they make a lot of presuppositions about white people, which comes under prejudice. What would you say to that?
They make they're fighting against the ideology of inequality by people that happen to be white, not because they're white. Anybody can be racist, right?
Say that again, sorry. The ideology that people have because they're white, did you say?
No, I said they're fighting against the ideology of inequality, and that doesn't have to be about. A lot of it includes people that just happen to be white. They're not racist because they're white. Inequality can be class inequality. So if you do something against me, and I say, hey, you discriminated against me because I'm black, just because I don't mention other groups of people who are also mistreated, that doesn't mean that I'm exclusive. I'm in prejudice against them. That's just a way of trying to. Anyways, it never played out that way. There's no type of there's no way. There's no like type of discrimination in the past of the struggles with blacks that ended up leading to that against others. It actually led to the fight for others fighting for their justice, for their civil liberties.
Sorry.
So if the Black Lives Matter organization was just an organization fighting for equality and equity among all, why the distinction?
Well, you could make a distinction, or you don't. What would it matter if you're mistreated and you point out you're being mistreated? You're distinctively talking about yourself, right? I mean, I don't see why that would be a problem.
It's a problem because if it were not about the presupposition that black folks are inherently oppressed by their nature or by their color, and it's about the equality across all lines that they're looking to establish, then it wouldn't matter if they were black. So the organization name wouldn't have a bearing there unless you had an agenda.
So, Bruce, you're saying that African Americans throughout history fighting for
you've just changed the argument.
Inequality against African Americans is racist because they never were talking about other groups.
No, I'm addressing the point that you made.
Yes.
The point you made was they're looking to establish and strive for equality across the board.
You're saying because of their name and specifically talking about themselves, they're therefore racist. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
So I'm saying like because African Americans fighting specifically for themselves and the injustices that are done to them, and they weren't mentioning other people, that means they're racist against everybody, right?
They're fighting for themselves.
That's actually what it means, yeah.
Based in the fact that they are black and others are not.
That doesn't necessarily mean you're racist against everybody. It does not necessarily mean you're racist against everybody. Default. If I was fighting for lower taxes for all white people, would that be racist?
Yeah.
No, all white people. No, I'm fighting for lower taxes are bad, right? Everyone agrees taxes are bad. Everybody agrees. I want lower taxes for all white people.
Isn't
that racist?
That's not a fair comparison. I don't think that's a fair comparison.
It's entirely fair.
The reason you don't think it's fair is because of bias.
Inequity is bad, okay? Inequity is bad, okay? People that get oppressed by the system, that's bad, okay? So we want the system to stop oppressing black people.
Correct.
Cool.
That's exactly the same. Like, because taxes to me is the highest form of oppression. And I said exactly the same argument, except I actually explicitly said what I think is the highest form of oppression, and I threw white people in instead of black. It's exactly the same argument, okay? So there's a bad thing, and we're advocating for less of that, but only for my group.
I don't think
that's explicitly racist.
I don't think that just because you're advocating for a particular group means that you're explicitly advocating
racist
that
for
other groups.
I don't think
they also shouldn't have the same.
Just read any of these statements from Black Lives Matter, and every one of these is explicitly racist. There's not one of them that they're trying to fit in with the rest of the world.
And they get you in a Kafka trap because if you don't accept the terms of the discussion, you are racist. It's automatically.
Yeah, there's a lot of things about comments that are made by people that are associated with the Black Lives Matter movement that can be taken as racist in and of themselves. Like, so I'm not arguing that. I'm trying to kind of go piece by piece here. And
honestly, I don't like that. I don't like the name, to be honest, because it should be by using that name. It's like saying that means that they're therefore racist.
Oh, I agree. But that's a racist name.
Fighting for an injustice being done against you, and you addressing that, and you don't mention and you addressing what happened to you doesn't mean that you don't care about others. And you're pro. So how does does fighting for what you want being about not about others not having that?
It's because they're fighting for things which are discriminatory on the basis of race, which makes them racist.
Well, there's no proof of that, and I gave you proof. I gave you proof in how that never was the case with the with the fights that African Americans had. I got receipts. You get what I'm saying? You're making assumptions.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Say,
I can send you a link to the blacklivesmatter.uk webpage, and if you have a look at their manifesto, you'll see that some of their platforms that they stand on are specifically targeting white people and black people individually.
Hey, Mace,
so what are you asking?
If I could interject,
black bigots do exist. If that's what this whole thing is about.
If I could interject, there was a system back in the day called affirmative action, which basically meant that a qualified individual would be placed aside because another person who was, whether qualified or not, was of a certain skin color that needed to be treated equally, which was mainly black people. It was a racist program. When we continue down that road and any variance of that road, their pursuit of happiness, right, pushes aside somebody else's pursuit of happiness, which basically violates the point of everybody being here in a free America and a free society in the first place, as put in stone by Thomas Paine.
You know, the injustices of blacks in slavery, it wasn't just something that affected them. That inequality that was being done towards them, it also affected whites, regardless of being a different race, because it made them not be able to compete against free labor. So they ended up pretty much envying slaves who had food, shelter, and clothing. The fight that African Americans were fighting for equality wasn't just an inclusion with for just them, because it ended up transferring over into also affecting other people in society. And a lot of how Africans are used, it's a deliberate ploy for people who want to revolt the American dream of that ideology, because a lot of there are two mindsets. There are people who had like a pro inequality mindset in the past, and they're about seeing people. It was more like a peasant serfdom type of mindset, because America was leaving from that old European past of a hierarchy and inequality, and African people who had that pro inequality mindset was pro-slavery. African Americans were having whites go against their ideals of supreme. Let me finish. African Americans were having whites go against the founding ideals. It wasn't really America until African Americans got freedom, justice, and equality for all. So the fight that the ideology of what America was founded on, it wasn't truly completely achieved until African Americans.
Okay,
was
Nivik,
also included in
I'm going to pass the mic to Kapow because you're kind of going off topic at the minute. We'll come back to you.
No,
later.
I'm 100% on topic.
Well, no, you're talking about American.
I'm talking about how
I'm
talking about how what they were fighting for.
We're not asking about the Civil War. We're talking about.
I'm talking
today.
about what African Americans were fighting for affect other people in society.
Nivik,
and you're saying that
it's
about a prejudice, about a racism, about what they're fighting for. It negatively affects other people. It actually had the opposite result. It benefited
Nivik,
people.
please allow me to explain what this conversation is about. I'm a British person, and I'm asking you to change my mind about my opinion, which is that Black Lives Matter is a racist organisation. You talking about the American slave trade?
Yeah. I'm talking about the marginalized. I'm talking about the marginalized, and I'm talking about the powerless.
Yeah, but how's that going to change my mind? I don't live in America.
I'm saying
what you're talking about.
The powerless of whites in society were put at a disadvantage because they had to compete against free labor. And being put and so like
What's this
it
got
took
to do
away.
with BLM?
Oh, brother, you just don't. Because I'm trying to get you to understand that the supremacy view that you have of it negatively affecting others, it actually had an opposite result of helping others. A marginalized group fighting for freedom, equality within society also benefits other other marginalized groups as well, because they see what can happen to one can potentially happen to them. So I don't get like, why would you want to promote supremacy if you're a marginalized group? That doesn't make any sense.
Can I interject?
Yeah, I was going to pass it to Capel, but he's gone now, so...
Yeah, because I think we have to look at this kind of... Really, we have to look at it from a different point of view. It's not the white man's game. It's not the Europeans' game. It's not like that. This is how we integrate. I think we integrate people. And unfortunately, it's done through generations, right? And if you compare something like, I don't know, let's say we had slavery for a couple hundred years, right? And we treated black people that came over like this. Well, it kind of reminds me of the way that certain people from, I don't know, Protestant states, maybe like in like, I don't know, what your Eastern English area, right? We're discriminating against the more Catholic Irish people that were coming over to New York at the beginning of America. So you had that little issue, right? Who can get jobs? How can we do this? How can we make sure that everyone's treated equal, right? And then you have slavery for 400 years, and then we treat the Japanese poorly, right? And then we integrate the Japanese. We put them in internment camps before we actually integrated them into society, right? And nobody was hiring, so they're like, we have little Chinatowns over here, like a lot of people.
And the Chinese massacre.
Right, Chinese massacre. Then you have the Islamic State, which we're now integrating with, right? Which we've now treated, I don't know, pretty fairly, but not really fairly, depending on how you want to look at the Middle Eastern war there for the past decade plus. So, if we could see a pattern of recognizing the fact that we need to integrate people in America equally, like it's not a problem, okay? But when things are saying, hey, these people need more treatment and need to be put front in line because they're just not quite equal. Yes.
Does this have anything to do with BLM?
It's displacing people, right? And if BLM is saying those things, that's racist. That's like, no, we have a simple thing, which is the pursuit of happiness, like life and liberty over here. And if you are removing somebody's happiness in pursuit of happiness, life and liberty over here, you're violating the law. And that's what our laws are focused around. And when you do that, and you do things like, putting somebody forward, like, hey, you're not hiring an Islamic person, like, well, now you have to over this other qualified individual because you need more diversity in your workplace. That's a problem. It's a huge problem because no matter what color the other person, qualified individual was, you just took away their pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, Grim, this is coming to a head at the national level in the U.S., not just in corporations or in schools or something like that. Right, like our own president of the United States has pledged to make a diversity hire for the next Supreme Court justice. I mean, like, how worse of a thing could you do?
It's racist.
Than pick somebody that's not the most qualified to be in the Supreme Court just because they happen to be a particular color that you favor over another at the time.
Opposite of Martin Luther King Jr.
Whatever black lady Joe Biden picks as the Supreme Court justice will no matter how good she is, will always have a taint where people look at her and say she was hired just because she's black and just because she's a female, or the combination of the two, and it's not because of her qualifications.
Yeah, why would you say that?
And whoever he picks might very well be totally qualified to be on the Supreme Court and the smartest justice in American history. But nobody will ever believe that because he already came out and said, I'm not going to hire anyone unless it's a black woman. Like how can this not cause problems? Like any decision that she makes going forward in the future is going to be questioned by, the most important thing is that both sides say, okay, well, we're going to defer to these justices, and we know that they're fair and they're unbiased and they're totally qualified to make this decision. So whatever they say about whether this law is fair, we're going to go with it. Like, all of America agrees we're going to go with this law. And then someone goes and puts a diversity hire in there that he basically says, I don't care if she's qualified as long as she's black. Like, that's it. That's my Supreme Court justice. Half of people aren't gonna. The half of people like me, they're not gonna agree, right? Like, okay, he hired this person. Whatever decision, whatever case this person decided, it's gonna be in question by at least 30% of America, and it completely undermines our society. It completely undermines the fabric of our society.
That's not how it turned out, though. A lot of people, a lot of what blacks fought for themselves, it inspired others to want that for themselves as well.
It's a separate point, but yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, totally different points. I'm just trying to give a big yes and to Grim. Like, you can't. The most important thing, if you're going to hire a person, if you're going to pick them for a job, if you're going to pick them to do a certain task, it's based on it's got to be based on their qualifications. Whether you think, and none of us really know when you're hiring somebody if they're going to be any good, but you got to give it your best shot to pick who's the best person going to be. You can't just pick somebody based on their race, whether they're white or black or gray. It doesn't matter. Race is not even it's not even a factor.
It shouldn't
with rare exceptions.
Down.
There's some jobs where you might have to be black, like you could be the spokesman for.
It's getting bigger than that.
Can I ask?
It's not just race now.
And 1 second, it's not just race now. Now it's like diversity of like, do you have enough like gays or like a bunch of people like in Pride or like, and they're making companies right carry out like internal. I forgot what the score is called, but you get like this certain
ESG.
qualification sort of. Thank you, the ESG score, so that you can post about it on social media and you won't be targeted by any groups that might want to blast you out there and put you through the ringer.
Yeah, it's like tokenism.
Right? Exactly. So it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's like, look at how black we are. What?
Anybody that talks like that is basically spitting on Martin Luther King Jr.'s grave at a time when we just celebrated his fucking birthday.
They don't give a shit about Martin Luther King. That's the reality. I'm sorry, but they don't care.
I don't follow the guy like a religion, but what he said was probably what I've lived my life by, which is I judge you by your brain, by your skin color, because you don't choose those things, but you do choose what comes out of your fucking mouth and your actions.
I think someone else joined. Paul Kapow is back. Maybe he can weigh in.
Okay, yeah, we'll get Paul's input, and then after that, if you go to the text chat, you'll see I've posted a link to the Black Lives Matter UK manifesto, which gives a bit more information about what they stand for than the blacklivesmatter.com page, which has been stripped recently.
I was looking for that. I wasn't able to find it. So I'm glad you posted that.
It's the UK version because the .com version doesn't really have a lot of information on there anymore.
I used to be able to find it. It was I remember seeing it before a couple of years ago, but I haven't looked at it recently.
So Kapow.
So while he reads that, I want to say something about Martin Luther King is that one of the things that he was famous for as a negotiator, not just talking about racism here, but as a negotiator, Martin Luther King was famous for always finding a third alternative. Like, you've got a left and a right side, and they have this polarized opinion of the way I would like to see things. And he was very famous for actually being able to come up with an alternative that neither side considered as a solution to a seemingly intractable problem. Right? So to me, that's like, he's always a guy that I've always looked up to in that respect, not necessarily, the civil rights stuff. That's one thing, but in terms of being able to bring two sides together, because there actually is a solution in between. Okay, the Democrats want this, the Republicans want that, the labor union wants this, the management wants that. There's something in the middle where everybody's happy, and he was really famous for being able to find these solutions. And I think that's what made him a great leader in many respects, right? And Black Lives Matter isn't trying to find the middle in what they're doing, and that's one of the reasons why I really don't like them.
That's not really a consideration to me. I find just looking for the middle of everything is really just it's a middle ground fallacy. I don't think it matters if you're in the middle.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying. Well, I'm not trying to make a middle ground fallacy. What I'm trying to say is that if you have two polarized two different people that see the world in a polarized form, it's you're either with me or you're against me, right? There's a lot of times where there's something where you're not. It's not a binary option. There's a third alternative, okay? And the third alternative can make both people happy.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying the middle ground fallacy where like, okay, I want to sell my house for $100,000. The other guy wants to buy it for $50,000, so $75,000 is the right price. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that third alternative where both people in the binary way of thinking wouldn't have thought of it, and you think of some totally different approach, which is a third alternative that makes both people happy.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
If the founding ideals of inequality was founded on blacks, don't you think addressing that would motivate others towards unjust treatment at them and affecting all?
Who are you asking there, Nivik?
Everybody.
Hey, are we live right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to say I agree with the idea that Black Lives Matter is racist, or at the very least, it is a harmful organization. Sorry, guys, but that's kind of all I have time to say right now. So that's my take. So yeah, wish I could say more.
So my question is going to be answered.
I'm not sure I got the question. I'll answer it if you say it again.
Yeah, I think
say it a bit more concisely, please. I didn't quite get it.
If the founding ideals of inequality was founded on blacks, don't you think addressing the injustices at them would motivate others towards of unjust treatment in affecting everybody else? And that's kind of like what the fear of racists have. They think that blacks fighting for freedom, equality, and injustice, who have a inequality supremacy, a hierarchy mindset, what that might mean towards others, and that's the fear. Because as far as I see it, a lot of what their fight it didn't harm others. It more helped others that were marginalized and powerless in society. That's just factually how it was. It wasn't like about like, oh, these folks are going to be going through this mistreatment and that mistreatment because black folks are just fighting for the injustices at them. It never turned out that way for centuries. So I don't get that argument that all of a sudden like that's how it would be now.
Because it takes time, and the answer is that there was these systems in place for these, and there still are racists today, but these systems that were backed by racists, like what we call the redlining, which was how to give out mortgages and loans to black people in the 60s, and it was found out, of course, and the damage was already done. What's more important is to know is that there's also like this social hand that comes into play in like the 80s that just like destroys the black communities as well.
Hold on. When you're a hammer looking for a nail, hang on. When you're a hammer looking for a nail and you describe all things in oppression and then how it comes out of oppression as the possibility that somehow the fight for inequality brought people out of poverty, if you're a hammer in search of a nail, you're going to look at racism and inequality being moved as opposed to large markets, large amounts of money and global trade bringing people out of poverty. So when you're looking at is it racism that put them there and lack of inequality that brought them out of there based on race alone? That's hard. That's way myopic, and it's a hammer in search of a nail.
I'm saying that's kind of like how it was with America. It fighting for the ideals that it's fighting for. People who have a pro monarchy, a hierarchy mindset, they didn't want that to succeed. To inspire other people to fight for the injustices that are done to them. Because if they're at the bottom of the totem pole and they get what they want, I definitely should get what the fuck I want. If somebody that I see beneath me, who's I don't even consider that seemed to be the lowest of the low. Me of a different race, I'm definitely gonna get what the fuck I want. That's how that would play.
Let me finish my point, which is whatever systems we've been deploying to help out the black community, which arguably is also the Hispanic community, poor white people community.
Oh, no. Spanish people are not black.
We know, right? The Puerto Rican community, like there's a lot of people that are also included in these social programs. And what's interesting is that if you actually look back, especially through the 90s, 80s, and 70s, those social programs, I would say most black people, especially some of the friends that I knew, said that those programs sucked. If anything, they worsened areas. It wasn't the right thing. They just caused more chaos when the government would show up and try to help in the right way, and then everyone agrees on a handshake, but then when the deal is actually being performed, it's completely opposite of what everybody fucking just agreed on, and it ends up just destroying and spiraling out these communities rather than just provide equal fucking opportunity and teach the youth to not be racist.
Okay, if they're so exclusive, why aren't they pushing against people not coming into the country if they're so exclusive?
But also that's the thing, Grim. If we're talking about something that was happening in the 70s and 80s, you have to understand the way communities were restricted. So I mean, it's very easy to go back and see videos of people in the 1960s being like, "Oh, we got these black people in the neighborhood, so we're gonna fucking leave." So it's less about
there goes the neighborhood.
Oh yeah. So it's less about the extent of okay, well, we're giving these people in this specific neighborhood money, but we do recognize that a shitload of fucking money from taxes is being spent on suburban development of communities that would mostly be considered white, right? And all of a sudden, that the amount of money that was going to any sort of community that was not white, that was sort of inner quote unquote inner city, that money got cut off. So it's even in the time of Reagan, when they were talking about oh, we got to cut off government spending, they're always talking about cutting off government spending in a certain area.
When you're marginalized with no power, hold
on. But nobody ever fucking said let's cut off government spending to fucking suburban and rural areas. That's never fucking happened. Right.
Lebowski, let me explain a little bit more in detail. So there's something called redlining that people, someone mentioned redlining. If you think back to the 1960s, we didn't have big data like we have now. We didn't have the Fair Isaac credit reporting system like we have now, and banks are always going to be incentivized to make more profit, right? So if you want to loan out, let's just say give people mortgages. Back then, the prevailing interest rate for a mortgage was 10 to 15%. They didn't have big data to be able to inform them whether an individual is worthy of credit or not. They had to make a rudimentary attempt to segregate the population into groups that might pay me, that are probably going to pay me back, and groups that probably aren't going to pay me back. And the groups that probably aren't going to pay me back get a higher interest rate, or they don't get a loan at all. And the groups that probably are going to pay me back get a lower interest rate. So if you think about it, I could just close my eyes and plug my ears and give everybody in America a loan for their mortgage at 10% interest rate. Or I could look into your personal history in today's day and age and say, well, if you've got credit cards and you've always paid them back, and if you've got the Lowe's home improvement loan and you paid that back, you're probably going to pay all your stuff back. So I can give you a much lower credit rate.
Isn't redlining discrimination
they had
on
in
the
1970? Listen, the best tool they had. The best tool they had in 1970 was to draw a red line around a zip code that's not going to pay you back.
So it isn't redlining discrimination on the basis of where you live, not on your race.
It's a bad heuristic. It's not nearly as good as what we have now. But it was the best fucking thing they had. All they could do is redline a zip code and say these guys aren't going to pay you back.
Can I respond?
It's even so.
Okay, what year was it? Okay, correct me. What year was it?
Redlining, you'd be going back to like the 50s.
All the way up until the late 90s.
Yeah. Redlining was taking place in the 1980s.
It was even taking place until Bill Clinton with the Fair Housing Lending Act, right?
So can I respond to that?
I guess that's hold on, just real quick, Nivek. That's sort of the point, Doctor. Is like, so like, yeah, we might be in a position right now where like, let's go back 10 years where we've like solved this issue and like it's not an issue anymore legally. But how much time is it going to like take for the repercussions? Like if you drop a stone in water, that stone is going to have waves that reciprocate through.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, 3 generations, probably 3 generations.
Yeah, three generations. So about 75 years, roughly.
No, in black people, that's like 40 years.
Jesus Christ, dude.
What?
No, I guess I just like
45, maybe 50.
Well, when people
say
talk
that,
about
it's funny. It's funny when you say
like
millennials. It's funny when you say black people.
25 years.
I'm joking.
It's funny how we're talking about black people. It's funny how we're talking about.
I was trying to say it with as much of a straight face as I could.
It's funny how we're talking about. It's funny how we're talking about black people as if they're different when they don't have no connection of their past.
They clearly are different.
They have all of the programming that's in them is
because their lives matter.
Is Americanism. The language, the culture, the religion, every fucking thing. Black people are pretty much white people with black skin. You know what I'm saying? There's no connection to the past.
No,
if you look, everything
you're totally wrong, Nivic.
Everything.
If I took a random white person off the street,
the entire beginning of the United States. What do you fucking mean they're not American? They're
totally wrong.
They're more American, and a lot of white Americans are American.
No, listen, Nivic. Listen for a second. If I took a random white person off the street, I couldn't tell you with 90% certainty what the color of their eyes was going to be. I couldn't tell you with 90% certainty what party they're going to vote for. I couldn't tell you with 90% certainty what kind of music they like to listen to, and that it simply is the case with black people that they're more culturally a monolith than than really any other race. Like they stick together a lot more in terms of the way their behavior is. Like they vote as a bloc. Like 90% of black people vote Democrat, like regardless of what their outlook is. Like how do you
all of the software programming?
How do you say that they're the same as white people?
Is from white.
They're not the same.
I'm saying all the software programming within black people.
It's not
you're
bad.
not listening.
You just have to acknowledge
you're not listening. All of the software programming in blacks is of whites.
Not at all.
So what? They speak Swahili and they practice like their old religion of Africa is what you're saying?
No, not at all. They have their own culture.
A lot of the dialects that you hear in African American when they speak that is of if you look at the origin path, a lot of it is of white dialect. It's a lot of the Irish and the Italian and the twang and the accent.
French.
I'm just saying that the linguistics is of white linguistics.
I know, but Nivek, it's not just white linguistics. It's like they're. Like,
I'm talking the origins.
I know. Just listen for a fucking sec, dude. Like black people are way more likely to have like southern dialects, right? As opposed,
well, there's more black people in the South.
that's that's the thing. Like doctor's right, man. You're trying to make like a monolith of this thing where there's not a monolith of it. Like I don't understand.
I'm just saying a lot of what affected them in American culture is of American culture. So this thing about like talking about them as if they're separate of Americans, they're a
subset.
They're deeply American,
and they're distinct. I'm not saying no one's saying they're not American. They're just black people aren't just white people with black skin. They were here before. They were here before this country. It's okay. Before this country even became America, they were here.
Hold on.
They're as American as fucking can be.
Can we please be careful not to make this too America-centric?
But Nivek, hold on. I do want to ask Doctor if like he would also consider like Polacks to be a subset, right?
Polacks?
People
from Poland?
Like
first immigrants. Like in Western Pennsylvania, there's a lot of Polish people, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. they have different. They have different food. They have different holidays that they celebrate. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. So there's all these different subsets within American society, but that isn't.
Yeah. A lot of ins.
It doesn't mean they're not American, and it doesn't mean they should. It doesn't mean they should be looked down upon.
African Americans assimilated a shit ton way before many white cultures in the society. African Americans assimilated a shit ton way before many white folks did in society, but they're not considered as Americans. They're not looked at as Americans.
I just want to pass the mic to Powell for a bit now because we haven't got his take on this yet. So, you changed your name. Paul of the Raw Unplanned Dance. Do you think Black Lives Matter, not specifically America, Black Lives Matter as a global organization, do you think they are racist?
It's a bit difficult because they're somewhat decentralized. So they specifically... The way they organize themselves is they specifically try to make it so that it's like about whatever issues that they want to focus on, or whatever campaigns they want to do, so it's not like regionally or whatever. Like I was trying to read their manifesto, but it's kind of
their manifesto.
It's not very easy.
You're looking at the UK.
I used to have one of theirs that they had on their earlier website. They've taken that down because I don't think that they really want to have a manifesto. It's like easy to understand.
Usually, if you have a manifesto, you're going to be in bad shape in today's
They found that when they had a public manifesto on their main website, a lot of people were criticizing it because it became very obvious that they were racist and communist. So I think personally,
that's it. Like decentralization of authority is a tactic of people that don't want to be attacked, right? So I mean, it's pretty common if you're a smaller, and especially if you're trying to upset the mainstream, that decentralizing, or at least make it so that there's no leader figure that you can say, oh, that's that guy, and so we can arrest him, right?
But
decentralization is a common tactic, especially you look at the anarcho-communist groups that are trying to do revolutions. They're always decentralized. They're almost entirely always decentralized, at least until the point where they start winning. And then once you start winning, you have to centralize control so that you can solidify things.
Exactly.
I wouldn't say that they're racist. I would say that they do have Marxist beliefs. Their original manifesto had a lot of things in there which pointed out that they were Marxists. And believe it or not, there are people in America who don't really have a problem with Marxism. But there were a lot of people who do have a problem with Marxism who complained about Marxism.
In their original manifesto.
America's
one at a time.
Hold on, Nivik. In their original manifesto, didn't they say that they were in favor of reparations on the basis of race?
Oh yeah, they were in favor of reparations. They also
how is that not racist?
The nuclear family being a threat to the nuclear family was somehow oppressive
So, Dr. Bombay, would you agree that taking money from one person and giving it to another on the basis of race would be racist?
No, I wouldn't. So when the Jews got reparations, that wasn't racist. When plantation owners got reparations, that wasn't racist. No.
That was actual people who were alive at the time who were injured.
Hang on. Don't get too caught up into the specific politics of it. Just look at this definitionally, right? Are you seriously telling me that race-based reparations are not racist? Think about it just as a definition.
Nope, not.
What's your definition of racism then?
Racism?
Yeah.
Well, my definition of racism, I will give you the exact word for word, which is actually based on the law in this country.
Which one's that?
The law.
Public Order Act 1986, Part.
I mean, which country are you in? I don't know.
Just let Paul finish.
Sorry, was I being asked a question? I'm not.
Just quickly, which country are you in?
I'm in the United Kingdom. So racial hatred, that would means hatred against a group of persons defined by reference to color, race, nationality, including citizenship or ethnic or national origins.
Well, that was a lot. Say that again, sorry.
So that would be racial hatred means hatred against a group of persons defined by reference to color.
No, that's racial hatred. I said racism. Yeah. What's racism?
Racism goes into racial hatred.
Is it just racial hatred?
Yes.
Okay, right. Explain what racial hatred is.
And then that would be means hatred against a group of persons defined by reference to color, race, nationality, including citizenship or ethnic or national origins. Now, I could go deeper into it, saying, so a person who uses threatening, abusive, or insulting words or behavior or displays any written material which is threatening, abusive, or insulting is guilty of that offense.
If you make it so that racism only refers to hatred, you're excluding a lot of things which would colloquially be considered racist but are not hateful. For example, a non-hateful form of prejudice. Let's say I'm walking down the street and I see a black person. If I was to hold my wallet a little tighter because I think that person might try and mug me because they're black, that would be racist, but it's not hateful.
Well, that would depend. Some people would agree with you, and then some people would actually disagree and say that's not racist, that's prejudice.
Prejudice on the basis of race, which is my definition for racism.
Okay, if I like really loved Muslim people and I want them all to have their own home in Pakistan and we just kind of moved them all to Pakistan, that wouldn't be racist.
No,
because I did it out of love. I didn't do it out of hate.
You haven't said anything that would go into the definition of racist.
Can I respond to?
That's not true.
Mace,
I'm just saying.
Mace, if you would have hit that person, if you just said, if you hit that person and said it, you did it because you were black, and that person said, "Why did you hit me because I'm black?" And that happened to a bunch of other people around them, and they didn't mention that. Does that mean that they are racist against all those other folks?
No. I think there's a bigger point trying to be made here, Divek.
I'm not quite sure what you're talking about there. I was just saying, if you believe that all black people are thieves, that's prejudice.
You don't acknowledge what I said. That's all.
I don't think you acknowledged what I said. I said if I was the sort of person who believed that black people were thieves,
to what you said
that would be racist but not hateful. Because I don't hate thieves.
So we're trying to establish. We're starting to establish what we can all consider what is racism, like.
I think we established it earlier that the basic definition, like much earlier when not everyone was here, that the basic definition.
Mace, you cut out for a minute. I'm sorry.
Oh right.
It basically involves prejudice based on race, and it doesn't necessarily mean hatred, and it doesn't necessarily mean supremacy, but it's just prejudging based on race, and that's what That's what racism is.
I would disagree with that.
Rather than using
that's
more
prejudice,
Okay.
not racism. That's prejudice.
Well, race-based prejudice is racism, and
But
if you have
remove
a
too much
prejudice
away
that's
from it
based on
for it to
something
be
other than,
racist.
if you have something that's prejudiced based on something other than race, then that's also prejudice. But
Like
if it's based on
sex-based
race,
prejudice is
racism
sexism.
is a specific kind of prejudice that's race-based.
Dr. Bombay, I was just addressing to what Mace was saying to you. I was just flipping the scenario of the person that was attacked because they were black, and then pointing
I never
it
came
out.
up with a scenario where someone was attacked.
And no, I'm flipping it as an attack.
Oh,
is what
okay,
I'm doing.
right.
So
Well,
I'm saying
if they
like
attack
you
them,
approaching
that is hateful.
you approach. I'm just saying you approach that person and then you hit that person, and you said you did it because they were black, and they said, "Hey, why did you hit me because I'm black?" And that same act happened to other folks. Do you think just because he never mentioned other folks, he specifically was talking about himself, he's racist?
Yeah,
That's the same scenario with BLM. It's like so if I talk about injustices that are done to me, specifically to me, that means I'm therefore racist against everybody.
No.
Well, then
What makes
has something to say then.
BLM racist is, like we pointed out earlier, their specific policies that they're going to stand with black people regardless of the outcome of the justice system in some of these criminal trials.
That's why I asked, why aren't they anti-immigration? Why aren't they anti-immigration?
Hold on, because we talked about this earlier about like monoliths. Like BLM is not a monolith either, right? So you can't say like white people are a monolith and like argue against that, but then all of a sudden turn around and say, well, BLM is a monolith.
Well, BLM is an organization with a website, and they put out policy statements. I think I can judge the organization based on their policy
Scott's
statements.
right. They're not a monolith. He's actually right. They're not. They're not. There are many organizations under them.
But that's not the issue at hand here. The issue at hand is the statement on the site that he's citing in the UK and the organization's name. So, like, to go in some other direction is not what he's talking about.
I'm sure there's one person in Minneapolis that happens to be black wearing a BLM hat. That's not a racist. I'm not saying that everybody.
It's not just one person. You can say like
it's a web.
How many people does it take to fucking get a website in UK? One.
Well, what I'm saying is the argument.
I don't know how many people does it take to get a website.
One person. Well, 7,000 actually, and a lot of money, I'm sure.
So when are you a part and not a part of Black Lives Matter? And you do. If you engage with them,
if I wore a KKK hood, you could call me racist. I think that would be accurate. But if you wear a BLM hat, and the official policy statements of BLM is racist policy statements.
I'm actually
you can
not
call anyone wearing
about,
a BLM hat a fucking racist.
I'm not talking about fans of Black Lives Matter. I'm talking about Black Lives Matter as a company which pays people. They have an income and they pay staff.
When also, Doctor, like if we're talking about like KKK stuff, like right there, I mean there are people who wear like Confederate flags and they just say this is our history, this is our heritage, right? Exactly. So if you're saying like anybody that like wears something that's BLM makes them racist, anybody that's wearing a Confederate
just
flag,
like wearing a KKK hood.
If someone is supporting BLM, I would say they are supporting a racist organisation, and that is a racist thing to do. But people who do racist things are not necessarily racist. You can do a racist thing by accident.
Yeah, but then in this case, Mace, if anybody wore a Confederate flag or had a Confederate flag on their pickup truck or anything like that, they would be racist too, right? You could say
they would just be anachronistic because there's no Confederacy anymore.
If you don't, let's say you donate to the KKK.
Any type of association.
It seems like you guys are making excuses where there shouldn't be excuses.
If you donate money to if you donate money to the KKK,
that's a little weird, dude.
If you donate money to the KKK, I would say that you're supporting racism when you do that. That doesn't necessarily mean you are a racist, because you might not fully understand what you're supporting.
It's fair enough that anyone wearing KKK paraphernalia in public, you want to call them a racist. I'm totally okay with that.
Okay, yeah. So like, yeah.
Same with BLM, because their official policy statements are racist.
Yeah, yes. So there's a lady who just got like elected to like the House of Congress that they have like a picture of her in a Confederate flag for a prom dress. So you would recognize like, yes, this lady's racist.
There's a good chance of it, yeah. I mean, like, she could just be from the South, because that symbology has morphed in the last 150 years. To mean something other than what it used to.
But that's the thing. Like, you can't say, well, if it's BLM, it means this one thing. But this other symbology.
Well, no. Well, they're fresh and alive, and the Confederacy is dead.
That's true.
Not necessarily. Did you see the storming of the Capitol? It looked like it was.
Actually, it was there.
That's hardly alive.
It looked like the South was rising.
Not even close. The people that were there weren't even larger than the South.
I'm from the South, and there are plenty.
So what's with the flag then?
Like,
plenty of
there's people wearing all kinds of flags there, but that's not the issue here. The issue here is is BLM the organization, its name itself. It's not those associated in some random way or some sideways way that they're associated with.
Scott's argument. It's hard to pin them down because it's broad. There's a lot of affiliation there, and it's broad. And it's very broad. It's broad as hell, you know. So so you can do that with the KKK in people who might know or affiliated or kind of. So are they the KKK?
I would wager there's many more folks in the BLM camp than the KKK camp by orders of magnitude.
Yeah, but when you say
I don't know.
I know.
BLM,
right, but I mean, like, if you had
lives matter, was that what BLM means? Blue lives.
Yeah. If you had a KKK hat on, right? If you had a KKK hat, like, one could be almost certain that person is racist, right? If you have a Confederate flag, it's a lot lower chance, like 30 to 60%. Maybe chance that person is racist.
Yeah, that's very true.
If a person for what?
Well, for that claim.
For the claim that somebody with a KKK hat is almost certainly racist.
No, for the claim that if there's a lower chance of someone who represents the Confederacy, it's like I think you said a 30% chance of being less racist?
30, like more in the 30 to 60% chance range.
And why would you say that?
They're a racist.
Just curious out of skepticism.
Because like a lot of people have this in the South, this Southern solidarity kind of culture, and it's got nothing to do with your race. Like there's lots of people that think that the South should have been a different country than the North. Because it's more agriculture and more like for many reasons they have different opinions on individual rights, socialism, things like that, and they're not necessarily racist. Like there's a lot of people that like the Confederate flag and the symbology of federalism or the pre-Lincolnian Jeffersonian democracy that the Confederacy flag symbolizes. That it's got nothing to do with whether you're black or not. There's lots of black people in the South that have Confederate flags on their truck.
So doctor, like I think it comes down to like a certain amount of ignorance, right? So like if you go to Taiwan, there are places that have like Hitler fried chicken, right? So it's like
sorry, what the fuck is Hitler fried chicken?
Dude, I'm telling you, just like look it up. Hitler fried chicken. They've got these like in Taiwan, they have these places where it's like you just see like the image of Hitler, and they don't understand what it means. They turned it into like a fried chicken mascot. Like it's fucking.
I think that's kind of based.
So there's
why are we all talking about this like racism is something a big issue, like it's something wrong? Have you defined it yet?
Yep, that was done several times.
Yeah, because I'm aware that I'm aware this is an issue. People keep popping in and they're not familiar with the definition that we've set, so I'm posting it into the YouTube comments now. If you have a look at the YouTube,
because we got to go back
page.
hours.
Yeah, you'll see the definition I'm putting on there now. It should be posted.
And earlier when I mentioned reparations to like when the plantation owners, British plantation owners, slave owners were given reparations, somebody said, yeah, but that was directly to them. But what happened in the UK is that their descendants were continuously paid reparations up to the year 2015. The Treasury was paying them reparations and made a big announcement in 2015. We've successfully paid off. Yeah, they made.
Wait, are you talking about the slave buyback policy?
No, I'm talking about when Britain abolished slavery. I think it was 1834.
Yeah, Britain wasn't giving reparations. They were paying for the slaves that they stole and freed.
That's not. They then started paying reparations to the slave owners.
They weren't reparations. Let me explain what happened there.
No, I'm actually explaining what's happened before you keep
Let him finish and then respond to him.
What he's saying is wrong. The British government.
Just let him finish.
Let him finish and then
you aren't even talking about the subject, dude. You aren't even talking about the subject. You're just
as I was saying, 1834 they abolished slavery. The plantation owners in the Caribbean were then getting paid reparations, and the UK government through the Treasury continued to pay them, and they finally came to an end of paying them in 2015. They then made a big announcement about it on their Twitter page. Then there was a lot of complaints. A lot of people were disgusted that why are you bragging about the fact that you finally paid off reparations to the slave owners? So what they did was they then deleted the post on Twitter, but they made the announcement about it back in 2015. So people who had nothing to do with owning slaves got given money.
Let me explain what actually happened. What actually happened was
I looked it up. What he said is
true.
Hold
on, Livik. The British government agreed to buy all of the slaves and then free them. That was it. That's not reparations. And the reason it was discovered in 2015 is because of a Freedom of Information Act. The government weren't bragging about it. They were asked about
slavery. Wrong. Slavery was unpopular. The people didn't like. Let me. Slavery was unpopular. The people didn't like it. They got pressured. They dropped the slavery and they transferred from that over into indentured servitude, enslaving Indians and Southeast fucking Asians. That's what happened.
I think you might be talking about something different, Nivik. I'm talking about how
I'm
the British
100%.
bought all the slaves and freed them.
And they were paid. They were paid reparations.
That's not a reparation. That's a purchase.
No, there's actually, there are actually ways that we can do reparations
slaves
in America.
in the Caribbean under the British were paid fucking reparations.
The slaves or the slave owners?
Hold on. I'm looking at it right now. Reparations for slavery is the application of the concept of reparations to victims of slavery and their descendants. These are concepts of reparation, legal philosophy. Reparations translate in transitional justice. Can take numerous forms, including affirmative action, individual monetary payments, settlements, scholarships, waiving of fees, and systematic initiatives to offset injustices, labor-based compensations of independence, apologies, and acknowledgments of injustices. Right? I mean, like the notion of reparations is like far-ranging. It seems like you're trying to tie down this idea of reparations to this one highly specific thing of a country saying, okay, we're paying people for this.
Yeah, the British government buying slaves off of slave owners is just a purchase.
Yeah, but
that's not a reparation.
You keep saying that, but that's not what I'm talking about.
He's still talking about it like a business. People didn't see it that way socially. People had an issue with it socially, and it was pressured to be stopped. And it was wrong. And because it was viewed as wrong, reparations was given. If it was wrong and it was valid as a business thing, then that wouldn't be the case. Reparation wouldn't have been given.
No, hold on, Nivek. Like say the English government all of a sudden decided to buy all that they previously owned in freedom. That is in and of itself reparations. That is by definition what reparations is, right?
Here, I'm looking at the definition on Google Dictionary. It says the action of making amends for wrongs one has done by providing payment to or other assistance to those that have been wronged.
Other assistance.
The slave owners have not really been wronged. Their slaves are being bought off them because slavery has become illegal. That's actually a really fair deal. The government could easily say slavery's illegal, free all your slaves, and you'll be out of pocket. But instead, they've said, right, slavery's illegal, but we're not going to screw you over. We're going to buy your slaves off of you, so you're not completely fucked by this new policy. That's not reparation.
That in itself is reparations. That's reparations to the slave owners.
I think you're being a bit loose with the definition there, but even so, it's not. Is it really entirely irrelevant to BLM?
Okay, so instead of arguing about
both people should get reparations. The slave owners.
Does anybody have an idea, aside from me? Like, does anybody have an idea of how we might go about reparations in a manner that's not?
I just answered
equally as racist as slavery.
I just answered it. I said both should get reparations. The slave owners.
No. The question is how. How do you decide who gets reparations? Now that
I just answered that.
No, you didn't. You didn't say anything about how to decide who gets
because
it.
The slave owners. You don't want an answer. You don't want an answer. I said the slave owners got reparations.
You can't point to it. You can't point to a slave owner anymore, and you can't point to a slave either.
Slave owner got reparations, and a slave and the slave should get reparations.
There's neither a slave owner nor a slave existing today in America. Explain to me how you're going to pay someone reparations.
Hold on, actually, I'd like to go down that line of inquiry.
Today's more complicated.
Nivik, so the British government purchased all of the slaves. They didn't owe the slaves anything. Don't you think that's like really generous? Why do you want the government to now give the slaves money? They've already given them enough by buying them and freeing them.
Well, it was viewed as wrong, that's why I said both should get it, because the government, they made what was being done, which was wrong, legal, and
the government weren't doing anything. These are private companies that own slaves, and the government put an end to that.
You got to stop the cutting off, man. Both sides are. So that's why I say both sides. I could see both sides having an argument of saying that I should be compensated of the slave and the slave owner. But still, I mean, the slave owners are motherfuckers. Like, so what? Like you were pressing people. Like, I'm like you argue good for people for slavery. Mace, it's strange.
I'm saying that I as a taxpayer don't want to have to pay more taxes to give ex-slaves money when I don't owe those slaves anything. I have nothing to do with them. I don't see why I should be giving them money.
Hey, whitey boy, pay your bill. Here's a specific problem.
That poor slave driver.
So imagine you had an economy that was making money off slave labor, where these people were being forced to work and they didn't get the contributions of their own work. So they're like, what they actually did, all their work and effort into somebody else, right? That like it's like, because you talk about like individual freedom all the time, and you talk in a sense like, if I do something, I should have the ability to gain the worth of my own actions, right? So now if we were talking about slavery, we're looking at a situation where like companies or government were enslaving people and taking their productivity from them. So now if we get to a point where we understand, okay, well, we're not going to allow these companies to do this anymore, but they've already taken a certain amount of productivity out of a group of people. How do you repay that group of people for the amount of productivity
that is up to the company if they want to repay those slaves? The taxpayer should not be forced to pay for that, because the taxpayer has done nothing wrong.
So I just want to actually read out the information because I've got it here. I'll just read it out. The UK Treasury continued to compensate the descendants of slave owners for decades after the abolition of slavery in the empire. The payments were not scrutinized until the British Treasury tweeted out the historical fact in 2018. The amount of money borrowed for the Slavery Abolition Act was so large that it wasn't paid off until 2015, which means that living British citizens helped pay to end the slave trade. The tweet read, "While the British government hasn't disclosed a complete list of the recipient individuals and firms of bonds related to compensation for slaves, researchers at University College London have compiled a list of over 46,000 current individuals and groups who have received government payouts related to the abolition of slavery. Many powerful British families, including current business and political elites in the United Kingdom, are among the recipients uncovered by the UCL team." That's what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
And by the way, Mace, you make a good advocate for Nazis during the Nuremberg trial. You know, why should they really pay reparations?
Hold on. Like it seems to me that Mace is saying those payout to previous slave owners was wrong too, and if he's saying that, it's consistent in his point of view. Like,
but he wasn't saying that. He was actually challenging the thing that I read out. He said that's why I had to get the evidence.
It sounds like you just read out exactly what I said, apart from the Twitter part.
But that people today were getting paid up till today.
Yeah, the slaves weren't being paid. The slave owners were being paid.
Yeah.
The government was buying the slaves.
Maybe because there's a lot of shouting. I never said the slaves were paid. I said that the slave owners and their descendants. That's what I said.
Yeah,
because
so
it went all the way to 2015.
I think
the slave owners are long dead by then.
Well,
if what you're doing wasn't wrong, then why stop it? If it wasn't wrong, then why stop it?
So the reason why it took so long to pay it off was because at the time the British government were charged, I think it was like 20,000 or 20 million. I can't remember exactly. The point is,
they were charged 20 million.
20 million. They were charged 20 million pounds in the 1800s, and that was an immense amount of money. So obviously, what they had to do,
a month's wages back then.
More than a month's wages, mate. So what they had to do was they've said, okay, since we don't physically own this much money, we will owe it to you, and we'll pay it back to you as and when we can. Obviously, when that slave owner dies, all their property and all the debts owed to that person are passed on to their next of kin. So that's normal. That's how debts work. That's how property works.
But the problem is that money comes from
right?
That money comes from taxpayers. That comes from ordinary people that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, but Mace, with that, you also
that's why I was bringing up Nazism.
Hold on. Like, I just want to ask Mace, but you also disagree with this notion of like the British taxpayer paying former slave owners for their loss of capital because they lost slaves, right? Like, you disagree with that as well?
That's a difficult one. I'm not entirely sure of that one. That one I'm on the fence, but the idea of paying the slaves themselves, I am against that, yeah.
Oh, that's a weird take. That's a weird take. Then
the reason why I'm not so sure with the slave owners is because the government is literally taking property from them, and the government should have to pay for any property that it seizes. Otherwise, it's communism, and I don't agree with that.
Was it not just property, but it's also like output of any sort of output? So like somebody might not own a piece of land, but they own their labor, right? And their labor in of itself, if we're talking these notions of property, that is property.
So the government stole property from the slave owners, but it didn't steal property from the slaves.
It did.
The companies that owned the slaves were stealing property from the slaves, not the government.
But the government was set up in a way to allow those companies to steal that money from slaves, right? So like it's not like these.
You just said the companies stole from the slaves.
Yes, but the reason why
they stole them. What do you mean they didn't steal nothing? They stole them.
Hold on. The reason a company can steal from a slave is because of the way that the government was specifically set up, right? This is something people have read for. so if a government is set up in a way that says, okay, you can own another person, then that government is making it legal to own another person. It's making it legal to take their.
I don't know. That's a bit. That's rocky ground there, because the issue is at the time this happened, it was already illegal to own a slave in Britain. The change in the law was that the British government were making it illegal to own slaves worldwide. So they were really paying slave owners who had their slaves offshore. They weren't actually in the country.
But they made that law that said slavery is illegal worldwide after the fact that they already made a law that said slavery is okay, right? So like the British Crown,
they didn't say it was okay.
Slavery.
They just didn't specify.
Crown,
they just didn't specify that it was illegal in other countries.
The British Crown certainly benefited off slavery for a long fucking time, and then all of a sudden just saying okay, well now we're gonna outlaw it, and what we need to do is pay back the loss of the wages to the slave owners without taking.
I don't know if the Crown owned any slaves, but I'm fairly certain the government didn't.
No.
I could be wrong on that, but I don't think they did.
But they allowed it basically, right? So it was something that they allowed, and they allowed people within their own governmental system to own slaves, and those people gained monetary wealth off of the work and effort that was put in by people who didn't get their own monetary benefit from their own work and effort. Right?
Yeah. So can we agree that the companies who owned the slaves should pay the slaves?
Yes, well,
I agree.
They should have paid them.
Not just
right.
the companies.
They should have paid them.
Yeah, just the companies. If you own a slave, I think you should pay reparations to that slave. The government, as far as I'm aware, didn't own any slaves, so I don't see why they would pay the slaves themselves.
No. The British Indian Corp wasn't separate from the government, really. It was pretty much.
No.
Did you see?
Really good point right there.
Did you see what Jay Willie wrote in the comments?
No, let's take a look.
It's that British taxpayers paid to end the slave trade until 2017. No British person owes anything.
Yeah,
same with Jews in the Holocaust.
That's what I said.
Same with Jews in World War II.
That's what I said. That the British people were paying
brought them
taxes
to America. Yes,
their taxes was being used to pay the reparations, so they paid it off. They were never told about it. I'm sure back in the 1950s, 60s, or 70s, had they been told that some of their money was being used as compensation for rich families all around the UK who are descendants of slave owners, they probably would have been furious.
Furious that their taxes were going to the lords in their country? How is this anything other than the norm? Like the people that are taxing you are taking your money.
Are we ever going to go back to Black
Lives? Yeah, sorry, we have strayed a bit away from the topic.
Are we ever going to go back to Black Lives Matter?
The British East Indian Corp wasn't separate from the British government.
But Paul of the Raw, I can't remember, did I actually ask you earlier what your opinion was on Black Lives Matter?
Well, this whole time I was trying to construct, because we're supposed to convince you that
nice.
Isn't racist, right? So I was trying to come up with something, and it didn't.
Okay, what have you got for us?
Well, no, I don't.
I have
anything. His best argument was that they don't exist.
I have one. So
hold on, Nivik.
The comparison
we haven't spoken to Paul for a while. I just want to check if
no,
he's
but,
got
but,
anything to say.
But what he just said, I have.
Okay. I guarantee we will come back to you, Nivik. Don't worry. I just want to give Paul a chance.
Well, there's something that I feel like people don't bring up a lot about Black Lives Matter, and it's that they're exclusionary to other minority groups that are also experiencing the same issues as well. So what
issues are those?
I know that they're when it comes to like police brutality and things like that. Like I couldn't really make an argument for them not being racist, but I could make an argument that they are racist against other racial groups other than just white people.
So you agree with me that they're racist then?
So yeah.
Is it racism if white people
can I
are pro-white and black people are pro-black?
What does
In your
pro-black
preference?
and pro-whites mean?
Yeah, well, basically being for your own race, wanting your own race to survive, and
If you believe your race to be superior, then yeah, that's prejudice.
no,
but he
it's,
said, is it
it's not
racist?
superior.
If you want, no, that's not what he's saying. He's saying that
I'm-
like if you want your own race to survive, like
Yes,
So
if you care more about your race than others, nothing.
So you see your
no
race
prejudice.
as superior.
No, I didn't say that.
You didn't
just-
say
I
that.
don't-
it's not
I
saying
don't
it's
understand.
superior.
That-
It's not
that
saying
is-
it's
that
better.
is
It just
painting.
wants it to be able to exist.
Yes.
More
Continue
than
to
other
exist,
races.
no.
I work as a white guy, I work for whites, or as a black guy, I work for blacks. I see my own race as more important than other races, and
So
I think that
superior.
all races. No,
It's
I
more
think all
important
races,
than
all
superior.
races should have that. Blacks should care about themselves.
Okay,
and
however
whites
you
should
want to
care about
word it,
themselves.
you think your race is more
It's not-
important.
no, it's not
That is
superior.
prejudice.
By the way,
Literally
what you're talking about, you could always divide along a group, along some line, like that type of mindset of I should just care about this specific thing. Of this purity test mindset. It will just evolve along another. Oh, this should more matter, and this it's
basically like caring more about your
it's
family
regressive.
than other people.
It is regressive. Is what it's logically regressive.
Out of
And that
curiosity,
type of
Not at all.
approach of
Yes,
dividing
right,
along
right.
a group, you divide along another thing and another thing and another thing.
sorry, I just want to ask Mace a question. I just want to ask Mace
Yes.
one question. Mace, out of curiosity, can you tell me, from your knowledge of history, are there any black organizations that you don't think are racist?
That I don't think are racist.
Yes, that we're concerned
what
about.
what is a black
So,
organization?
for example, it could be anything dealing with problems that black Americans were experiencing. So, e.g., Black Panther Party, Freedom Bus Riders, that stuff. Is there
So-
any organization in that history that you do not believe?
So to
was
clarify, you're asking me, do I believe it's possible for an organisation to focus on a particular race and not be racist?
Yes, in your opinion, historically, has that ever happened in your opinion?
I don't really know of many of these activist groups, but if they're discriminating on the basis of race, then they are by definition racist, regardless.
I don't see any
But
problem with racism.
they're not discriminating. They are trying
not
to.
discriminating.
You're
They're
all
trying to-
screeching. You're all screeching about who's racist and who is not, and
No,
it's wrong.
we're not actually saying that. I'm just saying that if they're deciding to look out for certain people, like they notice certain people are not being allowed to have jobs, or certain people were not being allowed to even register to vote. So they said, we're going to come down and help those black people register to vote. They weren't discriminating against white Southerners.
Are they
were
helping?
just saying,
Are they only helping people who are of a certain colour?
yes.
That's
So in your
racist,
opinion, okay,
I asked
brilliant.
this. I asked
So,
this
like,
question.
if you
I
had
asked him
a-
this
if you
question.
had
I
a,
asked this question many times, by the way,
pro-voting,
Doctor. He doesn't really directly answer it.
So
If you had
brilliant.
a, no,
It's-
if you had a pro voting, like if you had a help people vote organization, and it just turns out that 98% of the people that came to get help voting were black, then you wouldn't be racist. But if you had a help black people vote organization, then yes, that's racist.
Doctor. By the way, Doctor, this same question
Okay,
I asked Doctor. I asked the same question to him earlier. I said, like, what if a person punches you, and he said he did it because you're black, and others around you, the same thing happened to them who were different. You specifically talking about what just happened to yourself. That would mean you're therefore racist against others because you never pointed out that also happening to them. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. That
Whether
doesn't
you're
necessarily mean
prejudging
you are racist
or not
against others.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily
Yes.
mean you are racist against
So
others.
it was actually, I think it was a good question, and his answer was very good because it now explains a lot where he's coming from politically. So literally anything that is involved in trying to help a particular race deal with a problem, in his view, would be viewed as racist, especially
if you're refusing to help people on the basis of race.
I'm racist
You're not
against
interested
you,
in solving the problem.
that,
You're
I'm
interested
racist.
in helping the people. That's
Well,
so if I'm racist against you,
interested in helping a specific subset of people.
If I'm racist,
in
have you all
only
heard the
helping
term
people
of
who are of a particular race. So a white person goes to this charity, says, "Can I have help voting?" And you say, "No, you're white. We only help blacks." That's racist. Sorry, go ahead, Nivik. Let me just unmute you.
Well, do you consider Italians white? Do you consider Irish people white?
Well, I don't believe your nationality really affects what color you are, but most Italian people
color. Are we
usually
talking about
white.
color or race? It's not colorism, it's racism. We're talking about race.
I know, but
well, we never really did. We establish.
Hold on. Let me finish, man. In the United States, only about 100 years ago, if you were Italian, you weren't white. Do you understand this? This is absolute fucking truth, right?
Yeah, it is true.
Right, yeah. Like if you take me for example, I have 8 different grandparents, and they're all different from different countries. And one of my 8 great grandparents is from Germany, and the other 7 are from places that would have in the time that they immigrated to the U.S. would have been considered ethnic minorities. And right now, I'm just a white guy. If you know, I'm not particularly white. I'm not particularly white in terms of my skin color, but I'm just a white guy.
There's this thing called the Great Replacement for a reason, and the problem is that whites are gonna look at themselves as the problem. They're always being told that they are the problem, and somehow you're uniting all the races.
I can't believe he just used the magic words. He used the 3 magic words.
Yeah, the Great Replacement.
This guy sounds like a fucking race realist all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man. There's only one race, the human race, and we're all the same color when the lights go out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Stop being such cocks like, yeah, it's not racist, it's not racist.
Hold on, can we get Nivik?
By the way,
Nivik, you have the mic.
Okay, let me see, where is it? Oh yeah, the comparison of the past logic of black struggle, not mentioning other races, I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Metalworks, what's your opinion?
Oh, no. I remember. Okay. The comparison of the past logic of black struggle, not mentioning others, being racist against others. That's not how things panned out. It ended up helping others, and so the timeline of the past of what blacks are doing in their struggle that was specifically for them. The logic that you're saying that's not how things logically panned out. It never ended up coming around to oppress others. It did the opposite in others also getting it right. So what you're taking of the present, that you take that and you equate that with the cause and effects of the past. That logic doesn't pan out. It did the opposite thing. It was more racially inclusive. The results of their struggle. It wasn't exclusive.
How did
I would argue that
their struggle help indigenous people or Native Americans or Asians or other people? It didn't open up doorways for them at all, necessarily. They had their own.
Their own
history.
The civil rights. You're saying the civil rights that they were fighting for themselves, that didn't help.
No, up until that point, black people would be more of a citizen than like a Native American person or Asian person at certain parts of it, like at least the U.S. history. I don't really know about.
We had Native American reservations before the Slavery Act was even passed. FYI. So we had reservations in the 1850s for Native Americans. The abolition of slavery was in the 1860s. So if you want to make this argument of who paved the way, it was white people creating reservations for the natives.
And you know the crazy thing? According to what Mace was saying, organizations that would have tried to help the natives, like the AIM, American Indian Movement, that was concerned about helping indigenous people, whether they were in reservations or outside of reservations, that organization would also be regarded as racist, according to Mace.
Well, we never decided that
Well, it might
that
have
being
been, yeah.
racist was necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, that's
No,
what
no,
I mean.
It's
That's my
okay.
whole point.
I think it's okay.
Yeah, it's not hating each other. It's like I think that
okay
if
for someone to, yeah.
the most racist white guy and the most racist black guy would be the best friends. So, like that's the thing. It's not hate towards it. It's just love for your own race. Can we just establish that?
No,
Because
I
think
have
that
to-
there's-
I have
I
to
didn't. I don't mean
disagree.
it that way.
Relatively
I don't mean it that way.
I see, but
I mean,
that-
it's
that's
The most
important.
racist black person and the most racist white person cannot
Yes.
be friends. They, by
Yes, they
definition,
can.
hate each other.
No. Why would they?
If
Racism
someone
is
wants
not
Because that's
to
the
organize-
definition of racism.
Racism
Yes,
is not
it is.
hate.
It's because your
By the
definition
way,
of
by the way,
racism
Definition's different.
It's
By the-
because
by the
your
way-
definition of racism does not include hatred, which is
Yes, it
why
does.
no, not yours,
No.
mate. I'm
Oh,
talking
right,
about
sorry.
Las Bengtson.
By the way,
Things
things are cause and effect, right? What happens in the past, it determines what happens in the future, and the struggles that African Americans were fighting for equality, freedom, and justice. That the result of that also happening for others. You could argue that a lot of that result had to do with that fight from that was before it.
Can I make a caveat to my statement? Like the way that I'm using racism is not the way that like the left uses it, where it's like plus power or whatever.
Prejudice plus power equals racism. That one. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that.
I thought it was
either.
privilege plus power.
I'm not using it that way.
Oh,
I'm
sorry,
just
yeah,
like
it could be privilege as
Yeah.
well added in there. Privilege.
Yeah, I thought
What
it
is
was
the
privilege
problem
plus
with
power.
privilege? I've never understood that one, or I have understood it, but the problem is would it be wrong for like Africans to have?
We already
as
get
they
what you're
call black
saying.
privilege in Africa. Yeah, exactly. You already get that. So what is the problem?
But
Why is
that's
that
Why
wrong?
do we have
subjective.
such a white guilt? Why do we always?
Why are you so focused on race? You don't think there are other
because the topic is about race.
No.
In
There are other
America,
factors.
we
There are other factors that you can group people on, and there are factors that you can group a black person on of a race with another person of a different race.
Yeah, sure, but
Okay, let me. I'm not sure if I'm saying your name. Is it Loss or Lassie?
Lass. You can say Lass.
Lass. So in America, we have a we claim to hold a certain set of moral standards that are based on some founding principles in common, right? And that it's voiced in the Declaration of Independence. I don't think I could say it any better. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, et cetera, et cetera. And so if we have racism, you know the thing. If we have racism in our institutions, if we allow that to persist, then it's hypocritical, and nobody wants to be a hypocrite.
Lace, is fascism good? Is fascism good, Lace?
Fascism.
What are we doing?
Answer the question.
Good question.
Fascism.
I have no idea how to define
Fascism's when you oppress
no
political
idea.
opposition, isn't it?
I have no idea whatsoever. Problem is that I just think America as a whole multiracial experiment.
That was a nice flip.
I just think
advocating he's advocating fascism.
Wait, Nivik, are you talking about me or Lassie?
Lace is pro-fascism, and he doesn't want to say it.
He's talking about Lass, because he asked Lass if Lass liked fascism.
I can't hear if he's saying Lace.
Does he see it as a bad?
No, he's talking about Lass, Lasse.
Does he see it as a bad or a good thing? And he kind of slipped it because
I have no idea because I literally have no idea what it is. I have no idea what it means.
You have no idea what fascism
means. You're pro-white.
Yeah.
For just a specific. I mean, like you sound like you're a Nazi.
So you believe in the great replacement?
That's ridiculous, man.
So let me
How do you
get this
sound like a
straight.
Nazi?
That's
Like, what do
mathematics.
Nazis sound like? I've never heard one.
Wait, you believe in the great replacement, but you don't know what fascism means.
Oh, I actually don't know what fascism means.
I think fascism refers
Love
to
for your
the
people,
oppression
I have
of
no
All
idea.
things in the government.
So what does it mean to you?
I have no idea.
It's
I
when
don't
you
even have my own
suppress your
definition, so I don't want to
political
use it. I don't want to use a word I literally don't know what it means. I know that fascist means like a group of some sort.
I just told you,
That's
it's when
it.
you suppress your political opposition.
By force. Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually a dictator.
So you believe like just white interest by whites should be cared about, period. And
I mean, I would
everybody else.
advocate for separatism. So blacks can have their and whites can have their part. So I mean, there would be no problems then if that was like a utopia.
Okay, so
everyone could be in their own
so you're
land.
It's just
fascist.
prison. It's just prison,
If
actually.
that
He's just
is-
talking about prison. That's what happens in prison.
That's what happens.
Oh, it
in
is,
prison.
though. It's
Yes,
exactly
that's
what it is.
natural.
Anyone been to
That's
jail?
natural.
You should
That's
look out
natural.
for your group. I mean,
Has anyone been to
sounds
jail?
like
That's true.
Show of hands.
Only on a
That's how it is.
visit.
That's
That's how it
Hitler's
is.
argument.
Well, you know the funny thing about jail, though, Bruce. Even though
Yes.
they're separate, they end up getting forced to trade with each other because one
Correct.
group will take the
Yes.
will have like domain
Right.
in one area. so
Right,
they'll
right,
then come
right.
up
Which
with a deal.
that's right. Which goes back to my earlier point is that the success of a company of an ethnic group in the recent, if we want to look at how things have progressed in the past 100 years, has not been a result of equality measures, but a result of trade and global trade.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with global trade or what.
That's what's happened. That Bombay had a great point. I think that's more of the truth.
I want to
Everyone
ask
can trade
last
regardless of
one more
race.
question. Last one more
Yes.
question. Suppose somebody within the group that you like, that there are folks within that group want to divide along another line, so like you might have some type of impurity of maybe another culture or whatever, and they want to just say, hey, we within this group as a majority should say you to go fuck yourself, and we should care about ourselves.
That's a
and
traitor.
When you're marginalized within a group, you'd be okay.
Yeah, that's a
you'd be,
racial
you'd be
traitor.
okay. You'd be okay with that.
No, because
Well,
that's
they
not
don't
what's
see you.
happening
They don't
and
see
that's
you.
not
They
what's
don't
gonna
see
happen.
you. They don't see you as. They don't see you as one of them.
But you're just
I'm saying-
making this up as a hypothetical, and it will never happen. And it's so.
Oh, it
like,
won't happen to you. It won't happen to
No, but
you. You don't know
I mean,
that.
I don't see your point.
People can
because-
define you as an other within that fucking group. Potentially, it might happen.
I mean,
it has happened.
we are split up.
You should be fine with it. Is what I'm saying.
Nivik, you gotta
If you-
chill
if you-
out a little bit, dude.
if you- if-
You're not being very persuasive right
But
now.
I'm saying,
You should chill.
I'm saying, if you flip that divisive mind of us, who should be
I don't
out,
have
and where
divisive mind.
you're the outside of that group, you should just deal with it. Like how like how we should be cool with what you're saying. I'm flipping it against you, and if it potentially happens with you, and how the people within the group exclude you, that should be fine because they should look out for their interests as that group. Groups should care about each other, right? But you're the outsider of the group now. But that's fine because by your own logic, you should be cool with it. You should be cool with it.
Yeah, sure. I'm not
Okay,
sure.
cool.
about
So we
what
should just
thing,
kick.
but okay.
So that group who divide along. Maybe you have some type of other racial impurity in you, and they don't really see you as white. They want to discriminate against you. They should just kick you out.
That's true. Yeah, Protestants only. So anyone else, get out. We can keep going.
Keep on going. And then it's the next, and then it's the next. It's digressive. It's regressive. Is what my point is. That mindset, that negative, divisive mindset, it will just lead from one to another. You keep on going.
Yeah,
and
but
what
you
you
keep
what you're
seeing
okay
everything
what
as
you're okay
a
with,
conflict.
what
I
you're
don't see
okay
everything
what
as
you're
a
okay
conflict.
with being
Just
doing
make
against
shit
one
up that
and
doesn't even
excluding
exist.
and then being exclusive against one. That's you in the fucking future.
You're too far from reality. That's the thing. You're like
What do you
making
mean?
up
What do
these
you mean?
things in your mind that
this has
this will
happened.
be
This has
that
happened.
and this will be
This-
that.
This has happened. It's not this. I'm not making predictions.
Oh yeah, tell me who asked when
I'm
it
talking about
happened.
how people were. exclusive to that negative, divisive mindset of the past. I mean, Hitler got inspired through white nationalism and racial segregation against the Jews who happened to be white, regardless of them not being black. They got discriminated against.
What are you talking about, dude?
I'm talking about
I don't think you know what you're talking about.
Mindset. No, I'm talking about you could always group subsets. You can always divide another in an exclusive way against an other. And why can't you understand me?
Do whatever you want. But the problem is,
it might fuck you and it might fuck you.
You want to divide everyone because I think that
you're good. You're good because it's not going to affect you. Is where you're coming from. That's how you think. Good for you.
Can we remember that race is
hang on, man.
What race are you?
Let's not do.
He's not white.
Can I bring the conversation back to BLM?
I'm white.
I'm gonna ask Metalworks now, if you're still there. What is your opinion on Black Lives Matter? Do you think they're racist or neutral?
Oh, I was watching it the stream early. I guess I was behind, so when I jump in here, you guys are talking.
Oh, actually, just before you do that, I'd like to just say to all the viewers, there's about 262 of you currently. I would like to encourage you to please take part in the poll, which I posted a bit earlier. We've had 9 votes so far. The question is, what do you think? Is BLM racist? And so far, 100% of voters have said yes, they think BLM is racist. So
smack the like
the more
button.
people
Smash that like button.
The more people we can get to take part in that poll, the better, because we can get a better idea of how well the people who are against that idea have done persuading the audience. So
how many people have voted?
9 people so far.
9 out of 100.
Has anyone addressed the fact that there are white people in BLM? Has anyone addressed that fact?
What does that have?
Not yet, but there are.
Go into that. I just want to get Metalworks.
That has a lot to do. If it's a racist organization against white people, why would there be white people?
There's white people that are racist against whites.
Hold on.
Wow.
Because there are Jewish interests behind.
No. I can tell you.
I'm going to have to start muting people soon. I do want to get Metalworks.
I can answer that question. I got an answer.
Make it really quick, and then we're going to Metalworks.
The reason why that is because those folks, they regardless of race, they know that you can discriminate. They get it. They know that you can discriminate along marginal lines that doesn't necessarily have to do with race. So to see to be for the well-being of others that are marginalized along the lines of race, they know that could potentially happen to them who could be marginalized along the lines of thinking differently, because the diversity doesn't necessarily have to be race. It could be based off of other things along lines of beliefs too. And
okay. We'll go to Metalworks now. Metalworks. Is BLM a racist organization?
Okay. Now, I voted yes on that poll earlier, and now I don't know if I really should have said yes, because it's not really a yes or no question to me, because I think it's a little more nuanced than that. I didn't check again, but I did remember a couple of years ago checking the different BLM websites. I guess they're just different chapters or just different groups in the different states. And some of them had very similar rhetoric, some of them had I saw a lot of the kind of woke Farlick buzzwords. Some of them didn't have that. Some of them actually wanted to do general things to help the community. And it seems like to me that BLM is kind of still too young to really say it's one way or another, because I find it very disorganized. And I think some parts of it might be, and some parts might not be. And I think there are also people that are members of it that don't think it's racist, but they don't, they don't know what they're supporting might be. And like I said, the group seems to be so disorganized. I don't think they all agree on, maybe not so much agree, but I think they keep contradicting themselves on rhetoric. So I don't know if I don't really feel comfortable saying it's entirely racist. I don't even think it's very entirely to say it's a monolithic organization. I really do think it's that disorganized. So some aspects it seem to be, some aspects I don't. Some people I think are just, part of it because they think they're helping, their community and they want to help black people. So I don't think they know exactly what they're getting themselves into. And maybe the group that they belong to in whatever state they're in might be might not be racist. They might actually, be legit trying to help their community, which I'm all for.
Is there an argument that you could make to convince someone like me, who may be in the audience, who thinks Black Lives Matter is a racist organisation? I'll give you something you might need to address. One of the reasons I think they're racist is that they have this philosophy that white people are not allowed to talk about race. So yeah, and I'm going back to a little bit of what Doctor said earlier. Although they may have some white people working for them, they treat them like shit because they're not allowed to speak up. They have to just sit down and listen. Only the black people are allowed to actually have a say and have an opinion on anything to do with race.
That ain't true.
No, I know what you're saying, and again, I wonder if that's widespread the entire group, or is that contained to a specific group in a specific state? Because to me, that's the most important.
Well, that's a philosophy that Black Lives Matter in general.
If it's really if it's the main, mostly from like the bigger heads of it, the bigger figureheads from it.
Yeah,
that's
the founders
have
said
like
they heavily support that philosophy.
Bruce,
that's pretty bad.
Mace, I don't think you're open to. I answer this question. Why you think whites who are ideologically marginalized in society, in their beliefs, would align with a group that is racially marginalized? They identify with each other along marginalization, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be with race. So people, regardless of being different races, they could, they have the belief of a secular country, and people who want to think what they want or just freely be what they want, they could identify in potentially being discriminated against in society. You could discriminate not just along race, and people who are white understand that. That's why you see them be within BLM, and you won't see BLM pushing back against that. You don't see BLM talking about anti-immigrant. You know what I mean? You don't see you see what they oppose. You see a lot of the what's on the far right that would be.
I'm not really sure what you're talking about, but can I get Metalworks' response to what I said, please? Metalworks, how would you satisfy someone like myself who thinks that the organisation is being racist because they treat white people and black people differently?
Like I said, if that's more widespread, the organization, if that's the problem, if all of them in all the different states, if all the different groups all agree on treating, telling white people like, oh, you can't speak for us, sit down and listen, that's not good. That would make it very difficult for me to say that it's not a racist organization. The point I'm trying to make is that I don't think all of them are.
Oh,
I don't think all of them assume. I don't think all of them think they are, and I don't know if all of them are listening to the figureheads. Like I said, it seems to be very disorganized. So, I have a hard time. I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, that's because you think good about people because you're white.
Metalwork. I know you want to be charitable and not assume that like one bad apple spoils the whole bunch, but
this is the problem.
Like,
if most of them
they're
racist. There's nothing I can say. There's nothing I can do.
By their own standards, if their own system is racist, then their organization is racist. The mere presence of one person who's not racist doesn't mean that their system isn't racist. By their own standards.
And for brevity, it is factual that NASCAR is a racist.
Doesn't mean that it is.
So here's a question to put it in a different frame. Can you give a counterexample of a cause that they've taken up, or some such thing that was primarily beneficial to white people, not just as a secondary consequence? Like, has there been anything that Black Lives Matter did that, well, because they're explicitly going out advocating for black issues, right? Doing things for the black community, taking
but
the side of black
they
people.
would also
So when
be
you fight
racist.
for
You
social
have one.
policies,
Is there one single counter example where they've taken up an issue that's specific to other than black people, other than just tangentially related? Where maybe let's just say Mexicans or white people might have had like a little side benefit from their, like let's just say if black people.
Maybe there is.
So when you fight for social
but
issues,
I'll be honest
nonetheless,
with you. Even if we did find one,
what I'm saying is, if you want to convince me that they're not racist, find the counterexample where Black Lives Matter said, "Oh yeah, here's a white person that got beat up by cops. We're gonna go and advocate for this white person that got beat up."
But
by
I'm
cops."
saying that even if that did happen, I don't think that would convince Mace or yourself that they aren't.
No, absolutely.
I disagree. If they have like events where they're just targeting white people or just targeting black people, I don't care which race they target. If they're discriminating on the basis of race, it's racist. That's my position.
The thing is, if we look at historically, like say in America, where you had the Montgomery bus boycott because a black woman refused to get up and move to the back, so all the black people decided to come together and they said, we're not going to get on these buses anymore. We're going to do our own thing. That would be regarded as racist in your opinion, because they were looking out for themselves, because they were dealing with what they felt was an injustice towards them. They didn't feel that they should have to get up and move to the back of the bus. So they decided, we're going to come together, we're going to look out for ourselves, and we're not going to use those buses, we're going to boycott them. And there were all black people doing this.
I never said that.
How evil that is, isn't it? So they're so racist.
Hold on, let me address.
I mean, that
this.
doesn't. Even if it's racist, that doesn't make it a bad thing.
I never. But I never said protesting.
It doesn't necessarily mean it is racist.
Racist. These people who were protesting, they wanted equal rights for all race. They wanted no discrimination under the law.
But you could still argue from your point of view that when they decided to come together as black people and boycott those buses, they were discriminating. They were discriminating against the white.
I don't believe they were coming together as black
Let them
people.
do that.
I believe, and I hope this is the case. If it's wrong, then maybe I'm wrong. But if a white person wanted to join that protest and they said, you know what, I agree with you, we should have equal rights, I think they would have welcomed that person in. I do not believe those protests were racially based. I think they were purely about equality.
They were racially based because the person who was a black woman, Rosa Parks.
So she could have been a
white person. It was based on race. She was told that she had to get to the back because of her race. So the black people in that part of America, they said, we spend a lot of money here. We're being racially discriminated against, so we won't use your services anymore. We're going to work.
Where's the racism there?
Each other. We're going to help you, but they were black people, and they were discriminating against the white bus owners.
What? Yes. No, they weren't.
No, they were discriminating against them.
They were discriminating against the bus company for discriminating against. They were boycotting the bus company for discriminating against them.
No, but that's not if they're white or not. They're just going to discriminate them against anyway.
Owned by a Pakistani, what does it matter?
Look, if I go to a supermarket and the supermarket says to me, you have to go to the back of the queue and only black people get to come to the front, I'm going to boycott that supermarket. Not because it's run by black people or it's run by white self-hating white people. I don't care who it's run by. I'm boycotting that supermarket because I don't like its policies and how it's run. That's it. Nothing to do with race.
So then historically there is like a pro-black thing that you just supported then. You didn't have a problem with the Montgomery bus boycott, which was by all black people.
Isn't it more pro-egalitarian if you want everyone to be treated equally?
They're boycotting a company because they don't like how the company's run. That's not a prejudice on the basis of race.
The way the bus company was run was based on race, was prejudiced based on race.
Yeah. So that's the bus companies being racist, which I'm against. Yeah. The protesters were not being racist.
No, I know. I'm finding it quite enjoyable that you're now showing that, because all of these black people, there were no white people there. They were all black. They were all looking out for themselves.
I never said that.
No. I'm just telling you. And these black people
you're
were
the
looking
one
at-
who's trying to make this
No,
about race.
No. I'm just pointing it out. They were all black people. They were no white people. They were looking out for themselves. And I find it interesting that you don't have problem with that black activity.
I
which
don't
find...
care what their race was. They weren't being racist.
But they weren't going around telling white people you can't speak for us and you can't help our cause. They were
Yeah, if there was white brothers and sisters that wanted to help them, like, do you think they would have said no?
That would be really counterproductive.
The point is that there were organizations back then, from the Freedom Bus Riders to the Montgomery Bus Boycott people to the civil rights, that was regarded as racist, communist, Marxist.
Those groups were egalitarian. They wanted everyone to be treated equally. You know, they
but they were still demonized. That's the whole point. So it doesn't matter that you say that, well, they were egalitarian. They obviously weren't seen that way in the Deep South, were they?
Yeah, the Deep South was retarded. I don't care.
Well, whether you think the Deep South is retarded or not does not change the historical fact. They were demonized. They were not seen.
Optics surrounding it. The optics surrounding it don't necessarily make it.
Doctor, the reaction of racism being done at blacks isn't that they're against racism. It's that their reaction is racism.
Yeah, it would appear so. And it seems to become subjective. One group of people might say, well, we don't believe the Montgomery people were racist. And another group will say, yes, they were racist. But it's interesting. I wanted to get Mace's view, and it's interesting seeing how he analyzes it and comes up with an opinion, which I think is quite interesting. Yeah.
Hey guys, real quick, I just want to say, to people watching, please talk as much as you can in the text chat, and don't forget to smash that like button. Mace, you got this. You're the man.
Wait, is the hot take that Rosa Parks was racist? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, she's a racist bitch.
Mace, you're muted, man.
Yeah, you're muted.
Sorry. I don't really know enough about Rosa Parks to say if she was or wasn't racist, but I can say deciding to boycott a company because you don't like how it's run, regardless of the race of the people running it, is not racist.
He's specifically talking about her race being discriminated against.
She wanted the company to treat people equally.
Is exclusive.
And wait, why are we pulling hairs here?
Well, that's
they said
that's not the argument that's being made.
Back of the bus because you're a woman, right? And that would be sexist. So you can equally interchange it out.
BLM doesn't want others to be treated equally. Is the argument?
So it clearly has to do with just discrimination as a whole.
Yeah, we don't want people to be discriminated. Stop doing that for any silly ass reason.
Neither does BLM. They want everybody to be treated equally.
No, because, like I said, some of them say different things.
To be the case.
You can argue what Rosa Parks is.
BLM are actually in favour of discrimination, from what I can tell.
They feel that discrimination already exists, and they want to even the playing field.
And I think the past people, I think people from the past would not agree with that.
You don't think the people of the past can align with the people now?
I don't think Martin Luther King is racist, so I don't think he would do that.
No, I'm just saying, like, you don't think the people of the past can align with people who are fighting against racism now?
I don't think Martin Luther King would like what parts of BLM are doing.
You can label people of the past. You can label people of the past BLM too. Is what I'm saying. They're not that much different than people of today. You can label people of the past BLM too.
I thought Martin Luther King was against riots. Last time I checked. I think he didn't really care for that concept.
Yeah, but if you're making these kind of broad strokes and saying like, well, BLM doesn't really stand, even though doctors saying no, this is what I stand for.
The thing I'm trying to say is I'm saying certain parts of BLM are weird.
Let me finish. So if doctors saying like I agree with this thing and this is what I'm saying, and it's not racist, that'd be the same way as like saying. And if you're going to say, no, okay, well, it is racist, but then somebody could turn around and say, okay, well, like any group, like let's say the Republican Party is racist. right? Like it opens up this weird notion, as instead of like taking what one specific person is saying as here's what they're saying, and trying to ascribe some sort of group of
No, Scott, I know what you're saying. What I'm trying to say is I don't think all BLM are like this. I think some parts of it are radical, and I think the organization is disorganized,
Yes.
and I think some are very cuckoo, and some are very, moderate and just want to fucking help their communities. That was the point I was trying to make earlier, and I'm trying to say that. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm saying Martin Luther King would support the more rational, more civilized part of BLM, and not the more irrational, we just want to burn everything down side. And I'm not saying all of them. They're like I said, it's a very young organization. It needs to organize itself before I really could say the entire thing is racist.
Wait, I just read their website. I didn't see burn everything down on their website. Where is that?
That's what I'm saying. Some of them, I don't think it's going to be on their website.
So it sounds like you're generalizing and not attributing.
No,
it
I'm
to
saying
BLM.
some seem to do that. I'm saying some that go out there and
we talked about that a little bit earlier.
What you're
It's
describing
purposely
is not BLM.
decentralized.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's very
we're talking about
some of them are more radical than others.
No, the problem
Exactly.
We're talking
you
about
guys
from the
can't,
top
you guys
down,
can't
though.
label it as one thing because it's not monolithic. There's a lot of.
I don't think BLM is monolithic. I think it's very divided.
There's a lot of
you're not
organizations linked.
describing
There's a lot of
BLM.
organizations linked to Black Lives Matter.
You're attributing actions of others to a group that is not like that's not their action. So, that could be said of any group. You're attributing actions of some individuals that isn't aligned with the group.
Well,
so
there are some people that think that's what BLM should be doing, and they're trying to, different groups of ideas are trying to take over this thing. It's.
But
and
you're
that's
not
what's making it
describing the group,
complicated.
You're describing those individuals, right?
I know. I'm saying it goes both way, because you could basically say BLM is kind of like a Schrodinger's organization. It's neither racist nor non-racist, because whoever ends up being in charge, that's what's going to define it. And I'm hoping it's the ones that aren't racist that get in charge. I'm pulling for them. The ones I think are more rational, the ones that I go on the websites and would promote the ones that I see online, the websites that I went on and saw that, don't talk about doing anything. Well, to be perfectly honest, the websites that I did look up back, I think it was a couple of years ago, none of them said about doing any riots or anything. Most of them just wanted to change things or had really kooky rhetoric. I think the California one had some really kooky rhetoric, but it might have changed now. Maybe it's different now. Maybe those websites have been taken down or they changed. I'd have to go do that research again. And I probably would want to do more than just look at their websites. I'd probably want to look at what BLM might be doing in this state, what it's doing in that state, or this state.
Yeah.
And I hope the one that's more civilized and rational wins than the one that's a little more, kooky and thinks white people should not be allowed to speak for them. I don't want that one to win.
I know that you were talking. I know this conversation is about racism, but it should be pointed out that they're discriminatory in other ways within their organization. Like, they always prop up lesbian and trans Black voices more than others, which leads me to believe they're a radical feminist.
LGBT.
I would agree.
Radical feminist, racist.
Well, I would agree with the first part you were saying.
LGBT.
Yeah, I would agree with the radical feminist, LGBT, trans, all that stuff. But I will still disagree with Mace that they are outright a racist organization, even though I don't agree with everything they do.
I don't think they're completely organized.
Yeah,
I think they're very clustered and they're very all over the place.
Yeah.
Earlier in the conversation, it was outlined that we were more talking about from the top down, like the organization from above, right?
And if the top down is saying racist shit, then the top down is racist. And if people can show me, like May said earlier, that the figureheads are saying, white people can't speak for us if we tell you to sit down, shut up. No, that's bad. You don't want those people. I wouldn't want those people running that organization. They should probably, do something about those people. Just get them to calm down.
I would want something much more clear cut in their manifesto. Like if you look at the Nation of Islam, they say things like white people are devils. I could understand why someone would say the Nation of Islam is racist because of clear cut stuff like that. Now,
I didn't know they said
BLM, if BLM doesn't have that in their manifesto that white people are scum or trash, if they don't have that, I don't think. I think it would be hard for you to claim that they're racist. There has to be something.
It is implied.
Do they say we're oppressors, or
It is implied.
do they just call about the pressing class? Because
yep, if I can see stuff like that, then I can understand where Mace is coming from.
Yeah, I can show you actually. Have a look at the YouTube video now. I'm going to highlight a bit of text in the Black Lives Matter UK official statement. Here.
They also segregate at their rallies. So
paragraphs in, they say, and I quote, "White people must acknowledge racism exists and not push back in fear, blind ignorance, hate, or to retrain white privileges over black disadvantages, but
wrong with that?
push forward and embrace our differences as a positive that enhances our lives, relationships, society, the world."
By the way, Metaverse.
Sorry, guys, let me just respond to Mace. Mace, come on, you can do better than that. What's racist about that?
Well, my issue with that bit of text there is that it's making prejudicial assumptions about all white people. It's saying all white people don't acknowledge the existence of racism and they need to change.
No, hold on.
Maybe that's because you're
white people need to become more racist. That's correct.
Hold on, real quick, Mason. What you read? Nowhere did it say white people. Right? It just said people need to recognize.
No, it says white people. Look at the video. I'm about to highlight the text. Where is it? Here. So the very first two words are white people, and then the third word is must. So it's saying white people must XYZ. Any sentence that starts with white people must XYZ is probably going to be racist.
And what is the XYZ again? Because you read it, it was quite...
Yeah, sorry. The
no
XYZ is that
white lives matter.
The XYZ is white people must acknowledge racism exists and not push back in fear, blind ignorance, hate, or retain white privileges over black disadvantages, but progressively push forward. And to be honest, it's not worded all that well. It's a bit difficult.
Okay, so you're saying because they're saying white people must acknowledge racism exists, they're automatically assuming that all white people are racist.
There is a strong implication here that they're saying white people are racist and that they benefit from some privileges that black people don't, and that these white people need to give up their privileges.
So you're saying the argument is that they're genetically racist.
What?
No, they're saying Nivik. They're saying society favors white people over black people. That white people had these privileges.
Well, they're also saying this is implying that white people are perpetuating some form of racism in society because they're demanding new white people have to acknowledge the existence of racism and do what we say.
Prejudice is not because of it could be by folks who happen to be of a certain group. It's not because they are that. It's not that they're inherently
sorry.
bigoted.
I thought I had this on the YouTube video. I just realised I had the wrong screen.
Wait, didn't you say at the end of the video that there's a request in that speech that we all unite as one?
Hold on. If you look at the YouTube video now, you'll see I've highlighted the bit of speech in question.
Okay, because remember, whites collaborated with blacks. Remember, but whites collaborated with blacks in enslaving blacks, right? So are the blacks racist? But they both collaborated. You know, they both shared the same viewpoint in collaboration in enslaving blacks. So it has nothing to do. I mean, like, so the injustices that are done of the group that you are under, you know what I mean? You're pointing that out. Is not a statement. Is saying that they're doing it because they're white. They just happen to be white because that's what you're predominantly under.
Sorry,
and
guys.
And people are.
Did you put that video in? I'm looking in the wrong place. Where should I
go to the Pangburn offensive? It's the live video right now. You'll see that I'm Or
So-
if
so-
you look
so
in the
Mace,
live
Mace,
text
Mace,
chat,
Mace,
it's
by your-
posted the website.
Mace, by your
Yes,
argument,
read it.
African Americans should be pro-slavery because Africans sold them into slavery, right? Africans are black and they're pro-black, right?
Again,
So-
can
so
you
they should
not-
be pro-slavery,
Don't come at
right?
me with American-centric stuff because I don't know a lot
It
about
literally
America.
says here, white people must
No,
acknowledge
you
racism
answer my
exists.
question. Answer my question. So African Americans are since blacks sold African Americans into slavery, so them being against racism is being against black people because it was black people that contributed.
So with regards to like racism and stuff, right? So with regards to
It has nothing to do with being against a race. It has to do with the ideology of inequality.
It
The
says
ideology
Black
of
Lives Matter
inequality.
is a global
The
movement that is
ideology of
here in Britain.
inequality also included blacks selling other blacks.
Dude,
Wait,
can we just
are you-
read what it says here?
Yeah,
It says,
but even if the wording's bad, it says white people must acknowledge that racism.
Okay, but hold on. Just going
let
back to the
him
next,
quote it.
just to understand the context
Get
as
off
to
me.
why and how black
Let him
Africans,
read.
black Africans
Let
sold
us
each
read.
other. Was that even talking? Yeah.
Let us read. Okay, I can read then. White people must acknowledge racism exists and not push back in fear, blind ignorance, hate, or to retain white privileges over black disadvantages, but progressively push forward and embrace our differences as a positive that enhances our lives, relationships, society, the world. And then when you go down a little, it suddenly says that where is it? Black Lives Matter is a global movement and is here in Britain to lift up black lives, all lives, irrespective of race, religion, sexuality, and gender. We stand in solidarity against all forms of discrimination. We are all connected. We are of one race, the human race. Like what?
Yeah, well, that's the point. That's why it's not racist, right? So if it's saying,
I like that. That part is good. I approve of that bit.
Yeah, my understanding
Whatever,
is
it's
more
logic.
ideal.
Like, where's the logic?
Correct. I think it's more ideal for white individuals to understand and recognize that there is racism as opposed to ignoring and taking the opposite stance of that. So I'm not really understanding how that's racist.
The racist part is that they're discriminating just against white people in that they're saying only white people, black people, this doesn't apply to you. That's the implication, and it's a strong implication.
Oh, because it's omitted.
Because they're just addressing white people.
Yeah, I see.
It's like why
It's
don't
very-
they?
the
Why don't
wording
they
is
just
very
say?
fuzzy.
Why don't they just say
I'm try-
ignorant people need to be aware of racism?
Yeah,
Why are they saying
it would be
white
better to
people?
just say
That
ignorant
is correct.
people.
yeah, but Mace, that's totally fine. And I think we can look at something like this and recognize, like, okay, yeah, there's not like this great impetus of like where they're really negative against white people. You could say like, yeah, their wording is bad. They could word things better. I agree with you there, but I wouldn't say it's racist, right? I mean, like once you read through that whole thing, and you yourself, you said, okay, yeah, I agree here, but what you're really pointing out is you're saying, well, this specific wording and this one specific here where they say white people, that's what really bothers you. So it's not necessarily a fundamentally racist organization.
Completely agree.
Well, here's the
No, this bit of text isn't why I
Wait,
think
Scott,
they're
'cause
racist.
here's the-
hold on,
Scott, here's
Max,
the-
let me address what Scott said. The reason I believe that Black Lives Matter is a racist organisation is because the founders of the organisation are racist themselves. They've made as much very clear in many of the video interviews they've done, and they founded Black Lives Matter with racism at the core of all the principles that they. Sorry, racism is the foundation of all the principles they founded this organization around. And although it's not written on their website very much anymore,
combating
there's some,
racism.
it's still sprinkled in a little bit, like how I highlighted there. But most of the racism now you'll find has been omitted from the websites, but you can still see it in video interviews. Where
Hey, I have a question.
So it's pretty much the same thing as the United States Constitution, right?
Hold on, I can't hear you. Let me just mute this other guy.
Oh, hello? Yeah, could you define racism for me?
It's in the YouTube comments. Have a look. What were you saying, Scott?
I was just going to say, Mace, but then you could also say the same thing about the U.S. Constitution, right? Because the people who wrote the Constitution, there's obviously racism involved there. And because all of a sudden within law we get rid of these racist, specific racist language, does that negate the racism that's involved with the way that this?
So I don't know a lot about the American Constitution, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and assume it used to be racist. The reason why that's different, if that's the case, is because that's a change in policy. They're saying, okay, we're going to change from a racist policy to a neutral policy. Whereas with Black Lives Matter, instead of reversing their policies and making them neutral, they've just hidden them from the website. They're just not addressed anymore.
That's right.
Have any of you looked at the impact report?
So Blacks in the Past. So when Blacks in the Past specifically mentioned the word white of being discriminated against, instead of being broad in that description, they're racist.
Can you make the question a bit more concise, please?
Blacks in the past complaining about discrimination against them by mentioning race, by mentioning. Stop cutting me off, man.
Yeah, but you're saying the same thing.
By mentioning the word
to begin with.
By mentioning the word white, instead of just being broad in general in their description of talking about discrimination, that means that those blacks were racist.
I don't know what that means, I'm afraid.
What are you talking about? It literally says white people.
I'm saying that if blacks.
Why does it say that? Why does it say that?
Folks that are the white folks that are discriminated against us because they use the word white and they weren't broad in their description of just being against discrimination in general. That means those blacks were racist.
I don't understand the question, I'm afraid.
You're just saying because the word white is mentioned. You're saying because the word white is mentioned that they're racist against white. Blacks.
Of course they are.
Is this blacks mentioning the inequality against them by using the word whites being the whites oppressing them. So instead of just saying instead of not. That means that they're racist against whites because they use the word white.
They say that white people don't know any racism. They say white people must acknowledge racism exists. Like, do white people know racism exists or not? Like, what are they implying with all of this text here?
Yeah, it's prejudice. It's like me.
Yeah.
It would be like me saying black people need to acknowledge that stealing is a crime. That's exactly the same concept.
Exactly the same.
And here's another problem here.
That's not exactly the same.
That is exactly the same.
Wait, and here's another problem here. If this was just a one-off thing, like it was just a typo, no one would care. But the fact that you have some figureheads reiterating that this is a white people problem, this is white people's fault, that's a problem. And because that's not being addressed, that needs to be addressed. Like, if they did it in the past, and they did it like maybe once or twice, and none of the figureheads repeated that's not an issue. But if the figureheads are like Martin Luther King constantly saying, this is white people's fault.
What group should we be talking about? Eskimos?
There we go.
If I could give you hang bucks, I would.
We should focus more on Eskimos.
Just because you're white doesn't mean you're automatically racist. I'm sorry.
That's what I'm saying.
So calling you don't call white people racist. You say bigots keep doing this. Racists keep doing this. Racists keep calling
they're white. They're racist.
Racist is the weaponized word against whites. Can we all agree that racist is inherently a word used as a weapon against white people?
What?
No.
So we're saying the word racist is racist
I can
against
tell you
white
that.
people?
That's not true.
Wow.
I don't care about the idea of racism. I care about the word to tell people who are racist or not. So you are racist. How many blacks get called racist? and how many whites get called racist.
Oftentimes, marginalized groups aren't the ones. Marginalized groups that aren't in a position of power. They usually aren't the ones that are labeled in discriminating against another one. That's the majority.
The problem though is with that is, and I've had this is anecdotal, but I've had friends who were white who grew up in poor black neighborhoods and were discriminated against because they were white. Now,
yeah, they're white. They're black racists.
That's bad.
They're black racists too.
No, I don't really think those black people were racist. I just think, because he was the only white kid around, they were just. It was just tribalism.
Minority.
It was just tribalism. Maybe some of them were racist. I don't know, but the white kid should not automatically paint all black people as bad, just because the black people in his neighborhood treat him like shit.
Humans are like that. Humans are like that. It has nothing to do with
stuff.
It has nothing to do. There's no inherent. Humans are like that. There's no type of inherent bigotry. People are divisive along many different beliefs and race. It's a human trait.
I know, and we have to acknowledge that. Just because one group of people treat you like shit doesn't mean all of them are bad. That doesn't mean all white people are racist. All white people are bad. All black people are racist. All black people are bad.
No one has ever said that. We don't have to keep on doing like the majority doesn't do it or the minority doesn't do it. Yeah, that's just logic. We don't have to repeat that all over.
And by the way, we never really defined what race is. By the way, we never defined race. By the way,
Nivek, real quick. That's sort of the exact point, right? So what you guys just said is like you can't paint everybody with this broad brush. It's the same way you can't say BLM is a racist organization because a couple of fucking people do some stupid racist shit that they say they're a part of BLM, right? Like according to the standard that you guys just fucking said last in Metalworks, but according to that standard that you just set, then you could not say that BLM is a racist organization.
And the only exception I would make to that, and you can compare this to organizations like KKK or the white supremacy groups. They've been around for a long time, and they've clearly established the KKK and the different KKK chapters clearly established that they are, most of them. I think this was a Southern Polar Law Center. I just looked this up recently. Most of them are not white nationalists or neo-Nazi groups. Those KKK organizations, even though they disagree with each other, they fight with each other, they clearly say they're pretty clear that they're all racist. So we can safely say that most KKK organizations are racist or some type of white nationalist group. But with BLM, because it's so new, so just organized, and so all over the place, it's hard for me to say all of them are racist.
One thing
might be racist.
I
the people who started might be racist. The people who are pretty high in the totem pole could be racist.
I think the question,
nobody's asking for one.
I think you need to question how can you declare an organization or a group being something like racist, for example. How many people in that group has to have that trait? Is it just the leaders? Is it majority of the followers, or how do we?
Exactly.
In the history of their actions. We know that they are mostly like that because of how old they are, how long they've been around, and how all of them act. We can go by the KKK's history and all the history of these chapters and how they all act. They have a very long history. Okay, they've been around longer than BLM. BLM came out how many years ago? And again, it's going to be time before it'll take a long time before it really established. It might take a couple more years, maybe 5, maybe 10.
So we're talking about the actions as a group, just to get at the core of it. We are talking about the actions where they go public and do stuff. That's what we go for.
That's
not
more important.
You know why people's views warped? BLM wouldn't be around if there wasn't any type of racial organization on the right, on the far right,
That's not
of
true.
undiscriminating.
That's not true.
Russians funding them.
They're cause and effects of things. Things don't
That's
just
like
appear.
literal control.
Things don't appear out of nowhere. That's not how reality works.
Yeah,
You have
media,
cause and
media
effect.
didn't exist. If media didn't exist, then. If media
You
didn't
have
exist,
an
That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense.
and you have an outcome.
Hold on. Nivek is completely correct here, right? It's the exact same reason we had like any sort of like civil rights movements in the 1960s. It's not like we needed a civil rights movement because there wasn't an issue there already. Like the civil rights movement came to be because fucking very significant issues that needed to be addressed, right?
Like Jim Crow.
Exactly. They are talking about something as if it's separate from another thing, as if it just came out of fucking manifest out of fucking nowhere. And what do we do with it? No, there is what you're seeing is also part of another component, and that other component is of the discrimination of the right that was being done, and people felt that they had to react in a cause and effect way of pushing back. So the origins of the origins of the problem that you have originated from the right. If you have an issue with BLM, then address the issues also that's on the right.
Yeah,
I don't know why
but
you're tying it to the pillar.
I wouldn't put it into the
right.
Of the right and left like that.
You do
far right.
You do know back in the day the slavers were Democrats or some other party.
Oh, brother, here we go.
Well, they swapped.
We're going back, but
I don't want to have to go back, but just painting it from a political perspective like that is not going to work.
What is actually interesting is what is the point of the discussion? What if we come to a conclusion? Let's say yes, BLM is racist. Okay, then so what? Then let's go. Okay, we can say yes, we can say no, whatever. What is the point of the discussion?
The point of the discussion is to so if you believe Black Lives Matter is not a racist organisation, then the purpose of the discussion is for you to try and convince as many people of your position.
Yeah, but if we declare that they are racist and people everyone agrees, then it will just say okay, I don't care.
I have your answer, by the way. The point of the discussion is to trigger discussion. It's for people to have discord. Where people, a lot of people don't know, they say, hey, we don't want to talk about CRT. You know, it just forget about it, as if it's not a thing, and that encourages people to use the word CRT even more, and that encourages. So BLM is nothing but a trigger to cause discussion, the issues that should be fucking discussed, and it's working apparently.
Trigger discussion.
Well, if somebody says, like,
what are we doing
Lives
here then?
Matters is racist. So then anybody who ever says white lives matter, they're racist as well?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay.
So white lives don't matter?
Well, actually, let me clarify. Someone who says...
That's my fucking point, Laz.
Yeah.
Someone who says... Hang on, can I clarify my position? Somebody who says white lives matter or black lives matter is not necessarily a racist person, but that phrase that they are uttering is racist. It is a racist
by
phrase
association to the organization, because we're talking about the organization, not the statement, right?
I believe the statements Black Lives Matter or White Lives Matter are both racist statements.
Yeah, of course. But is it the organization we're talking about? Or
yeah, we are talking about the organization.
There is no White Lives Matter organization.
No, but if there was, it would be racist.
It's called the KKK.
Hold on, real quick. The white.
You don't call the Oath Keepers racist?
Hold on, stop. Let me finish. Nivek, stop. Let me finish. I just want to make one quick point. The White Lives Matter Association is what's known as the United States Congress.
That's
a good joke.
There's no organization named White Lives Matter. There's no organization.
There's no official name.
I was just making a joke.
So that mindset doesn't exist because there's not an official label.
We don't need an organization.
We need the official label in order for racism to exist.
Of course, racism exists. Of course, there are racists.
But I'm using his argument here. I'm not getting his argument.
No, but Nivek, like I that was a joke. Like my statement was like strictly just a joke. Like yeah, like you recognize that, right?
That's so lemon.
Okay. So somebody was in a KKK, and it's like, you know what? I'm not in the KKK anymore, and they become a server or a banker in a bank. You know, they're you know, there's nothing to worry about, right? Because there's no racist organization, right? I'm sure that asshole won't discriminate against you.
Well, it depends. Did he burn his robes and disavow everything they did?
Yeah, how many of you have actually been at an event? How many of you have actually been to an event?
A lot of people separated from the Ku Klux Klan because of the pressure. It's not because that they changed ideologically.
There's actually plenty of people who have changed. There's actually plenty of white supremacists who have, you know, come to the better side and actually go around talking to people about racism and the dangers of falling in.
In this country, you believe that?
I could point. I literally watched a video on a guy yesterday.
There's also many who haven't.
Yeah, of course, sure. But.
Yeah,
so
you sound like you have fucking Tourette's or something, dude. Hey, let me read this real quick. This is from blacklivesmatter.com. I just went on the page to see what's up. And this was the second thing that popped up. Hashtag Black women are divine. We are more than magic. We are the sacred mamas, builders, teachers, and lovers of this world.
Yeah, I saw that earlier. That made me laugh.
We are the first. Yeah, we are the first to walk the earth and the vessel through which all of humanity was born.
I love that.
The Creator speaks and works through us as we constantly make ways out of no way. I just want to say
I would do
it's a radical feminist.
I would agree.
It's a radical feminist group, but
I mean, let them. That's I think that's beautiful because that's their spirit. That's nice. Why can't just white people do the same?
But BLM is a collective of organizations. It's
you don't think that's a little?
I can pick one asshole. I can pick one asshole out of any group. That doesn't mean that's the group.
No. This is like front page of their website, right? So if you can find fault with this, you could find credible fault with the organization, correct? So you don't think, I'm just posing this as a question, you don't think it's divisive to say we are the first to walk the earth and the vessel through which all humanity is born? Because if any religion said this, I would call them divisive and silly.
Religion doesn't say anything.
I mean, there are religions that think other people are the chosen ones.
Every religion makes those kinds of statements.
So why are they inclusive and they're not anti-immigrant?
Huh?
Why are they inclusive with other groups coming in and they're not anti-immigration?
Is everyone a racist yet?
Yes. Base.
Is someone talking to me?
So yeah, I mean, I consider
this topic, Mace.
Hello,
I thought that I was a racist before, but now I'm somehow even a bigger racist now.
Yeah, I mean,
if anyone's interested, the poll results are looking quite interesting.
So I'm interested to know, Mace, your show Convince Me Otherwise. Has anyone convinced you otherwise today?
No, I actually feel like it's actually emboldened my original position.
That's what I thought.
I have one more question. Do y'all think the Jesse Smollett case was a white supremacist charade?
I don't know who that is. The poll results show, okay, we've had 21 votes.
That did the hate crime.
I just said I don't know who that is.
From Empire.
We've had 21 votes.
The gay dude that faked the hate crime.
Zemo, thought it necessary to call him gay.
Yeah,
well, he is gay. The gay black guy that from Empire. Look him up.
I do have a question for you though, Mace. Like, so if you're saying like Black Lives Matter is racist, you're not saying everybody that says Black Lives Matter is racist. You're saying like there are certain people in some sort of organizations somewhere that are racist, but that doesn't have to do with like the majority of people who would say like, okay, I feel Black Lives Matter, right?
I'm saying that the organization itself was founded by racist people to be a racist organization.
yeah,
People who are
yes,
fans of that
yes,
organization
great.
are not necessarily racist
No, the
because they
neighbors
may
down my
not fully
street who have the
understand
BLM
what
flag
they're a
are not
fan of.
racist, I don't think.
So
yes, exactly. That's.
I thought what I'd do. I wrote this article for the warofIdeas.org. I just wanted to say, if you guys have your own articles you want published or you want me to read and potentially publish, you can send them to me. I published this on July 22nd, 2022, and this was my declaration of ideological war on Black Lives Matter, the organization. And I just wanted to read this and see where we're at with Black Lives Matter. And see if you guys think that they have satisfied any of my war terms. Interestingly enough, since then they have really changed, and I'm not saying that my declaration of war had any impact, but since then I believe they have changed a lot of their language that on their main website.
Yeah,
is that right, Mace?
Yeah, they've actually removed a lot of their original policies, which were obviously racist or
obviously racist. Yeah,
or
socialist. That's a lot of this.
Yeah,
that's a lot of stuff I called out. But anyways, I just want to read through this quickly and see, because you guys have been talking about this for a while, and see what's up. So here's the claims I make. Black Lives Matter promotes racism and anti-scientific myths that distract from the actual cultural issues that lead to people having violent interactions with law enforcement. An example of one of these cultural issues is machismo. Here's a quote. "If I see my daughter get violently taken down by the cops, they would have to shoot me as I would be fighting them off to defend her." End quote. This line of thinking leads to death and intense blows to the current and future well-being of those involved. There are many more cultural examples.
Can I say one thing? Ain't machismo?
No, you can't, because I'm talking now, Nivik, and you've had a lot of airtime today, man.
But machismo is an American trait.
Okay, so you said something anyway.
Speaking, everyone.
And then I linked a couple videos. So here are my war terms. I said war term number 1: Black Lives Matter must adopt a non-racist label and mission statement such as "Lives Matter." I don't think that's happened.
Yes, there we go.
Number 2: Black Lives Matter must create a culture in their organization that ridicules those that seek to judge people by the color of their skin and not the content of their character. So instead of saying, well, even though that person's in our organization's Facebook group, they just say what they say, even though they claim to be a member of our organization of Black Lives Matter. They should make it a thing to educate their organization members that they are not going to tolerate people that judge people by the color of their skin and the content of their character. I belong to Nivik. I'm not done. Wait till I'm done. So I belong to a lot of Black Lives Matter organization Facebook groups, and I can tell you I deal with daily racism from these groups because of the color of my skin and because of what people can kind of tell by my Facebook profile. So that hasn't, and I've never been, an admin has never come in and said, let's not be racist here. That has never happened in my experience. So I see it's at least happening in some respect. Black Lives Matter must make it clear that their organization is 100% against resisting police arrest. I don't think they've done that, have they? Is that a message that they're promoting? I don't know.
No. But I don't think anybody's done that, right? So even the people who Capitol on like January 6th, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
But this is specifically towards Black Lives Matter organization, right?
No,
I'm not interested in like whataboutism.
No, I was actually making that a point to agree with you.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, but I just, I don't want to go outside of this organization because this is pretty specific. Number 4, Black Lives Matter must educate its members on race-based statistics, what they mean and what they don't mean. Quote, way more black males are incarcerated in the United States. That's evidence of racism. This is totally absurd. You need evidence of racism to demonstrate racism. The misunderstanding of statistics and what they mean is instilling a false sense of racist alarmism in your members. And then I also gave them a term of defeat. If you are unable to adopt these war terms, you must close down your racist organization. I will be dedicating resources to make sure you address these terms in whatever way you see fit. The war will stop once you have satisfied my terms or accept the term of defeat. So far, the war is ongoing, and I see that they have not met my war terms, unless anyone disagrees.
Do you want to ban racist organizations?
What do you see of
that's my moral ought proclamation that they should shut down the racist organization.
So shut down free speech and free group creation.
What do you see? What happened? Okay.
If they're going to be engaging in these things that they do that are in my war terms, I think the good thing to do is to shut down their organization. Just like if there was an organization, just like if there was an organization promoting child suicide, you might say, well, they should have a say. We should allow them to, promote child suicide. Absolute free speech, right?
Yes.
Well, yeah. Well,
I don't agree with that.
I would call you morally. I would call you morally repugnant.
Yes.
Right?
Travis, you said I could respond.
Yeah, I still haven't made it through, but I just wanted. Okay. Anyways, yeah, I'm basically done. But my main point is, I am happy to see that they've have we talked about things that we're happy to see in the way that Black Lives Matter has evolved and the things that they've worked on, because we need to note that too, right? If there's criticism towards a very large influential organization like Black Lives Matter, and they've made some efforts to update the language on their website, we can't bury our heads up our ass and get all conspiratorial and think they're just burying it because they want to keep racism alive within the organization. We actually have to look at the evidence of what's going on, right? So I commend them for satisfying a few of my war terms here, some details, but damn, they still have a long way to go, in my opinion.
Do you think you'd had any authority? Like, yeah, tell everyone you're not racist. Do you think they'd listen?
What? Oh, do I think... I speak to these groups every day, right?
That's great.
I try to make it make an effort to post at least once a day in the groups, and everyone gets mad at me and calls me all kinds of things.
That's fun.
Okay. Quick response. Things aren't connected, in where we're only talking about BLM. You're not acknowledging that there is a reaction to something that made them do.
That's because that's a tangent.
Jesus.
No. I'm just saying, like, it's saying that they're anti-science. The ideology of looking at others as if they aren't a race and being racist. That is what's anti-science, and that's where the anti-science mindset stems from. Things are a reaction of what's on the. Things are a reaction of what's on the far right.
It's always a reaction to the right.
What you're seeing,
extremism is not a justified reaction to extremism. Causing chaos and confusion and beating people up in the streets if they're white or something. What the fuck is that? How is that a solution? It is a nonsensical, pointless statement to say, "Oh no, it's a reaction to something." Who cares?
Things are logically cause and effect. They are not separate. And I'm saying what you're seeing of one group, it's from another group on the other side.
Cause and effect is not justification.
That anti-science view of black people in anti-science, they're looking at another group as if they're not a race. That's anti-science.
Nivek, you're not caring if you're talking over someone because other people
don't want to hear what I have to say.
Hang on, Nivek.
We've been hearing what you've had to say for a really long time, Nivek.
Andy, what is this?
What did I say?
What is this trend? Hey, what is it, Nivek? Nivek, what is this trend of people just all of a sudden screaming into the mic on this server. Mic hogging is against the rules, and stop screaming into the mic like you can't hear anything.
It's not just me.
I know it's not just you, Nivik, but I just heard you do it there.
But also, Andy's allowed to
So,
do it.
okay, so am I gonna?
Kindergarten level.
But I can't talk. I can't talk.
Nivik, you've had so much airtime, man.
Yeah, you've had.
Let me respond to what you just said. Can I respond to what you just said?
Yes.
Holy shit, dude. Man, like, fuck, dude.
I was just saying that
everyone else in the room, we got a ton of people in the room. Everyone else be quiet because Nivik has something else to say.
I was just saying that things aren't separate; they're cause and effect. What you're seeing overreaction of BLM on the left, it is overreaction of what's on the right that's not being acknowledged, of the bigotry mindset. And to say that the BLM has an anti-science mindset, to not look at another race as if they're human, that's having an anti-science mindset. That's all.
Yeah, and you know what else? I only beat my wife because she burnt the roast. It was cause and effect. Who cares?
I'm gonna throw you in the fucking penalty box if you derail this.
So I'm trying to make a genuine point. Cause and effect is not justification. It is irrelevant and it's an obfuscation.
So somebody punched you in the face and you punched them back. It had nothing to do with them punching you in the face, Andy.
No one is being punched in the face back for punching someone in the face. People are rioting and getting hysterical in a different location involving different people in reaction to something else. It's not justified.
Your point is that everyone has to have self-control. Self-control, nothing else.
Hold on, just real quick, and like Andy, right off the bat, you're tying things Nivek that he didn't say, and Nivek, like what you're saying is wrong. Basically, like you can make the argument, like if we look at a pot of boiling water, we understand that there's heat like being put into that pot to like make that water boil, right? So like I think Nivek is like roughly trying to make the argument like we have to look at things in a greater sense. We can't just look at like boiling water and say, "Oh, that water's boiling." We have
bingo. Things are connected, and they're not looking at the paradigm, the broad connection, the relation of other things. It's almost as if like what BLM just came out of nowhere, just manifested from out of nowhere. There's nothing that.
What you can't do is look at boiling water and say.
I don't think anyone was making that claim.
Nobody's addressing the opposite side of what
get in. What you can't do. It's totally cool to look at boiling water and say that boiling water is boiling because it's on a stove. Fine. But what you can't do is look at boiling water and say that water's not boiling because it's on a stove.
Exactly.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, we were at like 200 viewers, right? And now we're we're 7.
Hold on, last.
Long for this segment. So
can I just say,
screaming into the mic started.
Wait, Pangburn. Sorry, Travis. What would you? Do you prefer Pangburn or Travis?
Yeah, cause and effect is logic.
You call me Trav.
Trav. Yeah, just like to say, as soon as you arrived on the stream, our views started to plummet. We were at 333. You arrived, and then it's just a straight. And we're now at 7.
It's my fault.
Hey, Nivik, you know what else is another thing? There's this concept called correlation doesn't equal causation.
Causality and correlation isn't it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I'm explaining how it does.
Or more.
Yes, absolutely.
What could have happened was something.
An explanation says how. Explanation of how it does says so.
Another thing that could have happened was something was exaggerated, and people took that exaggeration maybe a wee bit seriously.
Okay.
You know.
Exactly. So if somebody punched somebody in the face and they punch them back, that doesn't. Them punching them back might not have nothing to do with it. That might not necessarily. Them punching them back might not have. Might necessarily
let other people get a word in edgewise.
I'm responding to what I'm responding to him. Them punching them back has nothing to do.
No. The thing I'm describing is more like. You know, I heard.
I'm addressing your logic. I
heard.
You guys chill for a second.
I heard Sean sucker punched Jerry a couple days ago.
We can break up into some smaller rooms, Mace. Are you ready to call the live stream, or?
Yeah, I'll just say my closing statement.
Yeah.
So, I personally haven't really been convinced otherwise on this, but according to our poll, some of our viewers have been, actually. We have 23 votes in now, and the divide is 65% yes, BLM is racist, 35% no, BLM is not racist. So maybe you could consider that a win if you're on the no side, because that's a fairly large percentage for something that's not true. Anyway, yeah, thank you for tuning in to convince me otherwise. Next week's topic is undecided as of yet, but I'll make sure to put an announcement in on the Discord. Please do join the Discord if you're not already there, and yeah, thanks.
Mace, this was awesome, man.